What is up, everybody? Good morning. Happy Saturday. Happy New Year. To anybody who's not joined us previously before, welcome to Coast to Coast College Football Pregame Show. We've made the championship week. This is the big week. This is what we all, what us fans wait for all year. Hopefully your team is still standing at the end of the year, but we get down to the 2, and that's where we're at. Joining me this morning, as always, probably, you getting snow out there today, Cottrell?
I am.
Are you? Snowing. We're getting our first snow here in PA in like the last 2 years, so it's everybody's overreacting and doing all that as always. But joining me from Ohio, as always, my Buckeye brother from another mother, Mr. Cottrell Simpson, sipping on his wire-to-wire mug. How are you this morning, sir?
Doing pretty good. Got some news out of Ohio State's camp past couple days, and I'm sure we'll get into at least a little bit of it today. But I'm excited. We got our last weekend of games going on for the college football season. So
that we do. In a weird way, it's kind of sad, but I mean, at the same time, this is the best weekend of the year. As always, joining us from out west, he changed his hat because he looked a little bit like the Undertaker. I was going to introduce him. I was going to give him the introduction as the dead man from Death Valley, but he changed his hat. So
it's too much, man. It's too much.
Mr. West Coast himself, Mr. I Black, Mr. Alex Elmore. How are you, sir?
Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are not fortunate enough to have snow. It's just cold and wet, like typical PNW weather. And yes, I did change my hat. In case you that did not see, I did have like a black bucket hat on. I thought it was dope. I put it on. It was not. If you've seen the secret window, that kind of explains everything you need to know. But no, I'm excited for today. We got some good action to cover. We got some guesses coming up of talking about the NCAA new video game coming out that they're announcing Monday who's going to be the cover athlete on. I'm excited to get on these topics. I'm excited to be here with you guys and look forward to this every week. Let's hit the ground running. Let's have a great show.
Alex is very excited about NCAA football.
Dude, so much, man. So many core memories
I
wrapped around that game.
Do you have a council already, Alex, is the question.
Do you have what?
A council.
No.
PlayStation, no. Xbox.
A console. So I was like, wait, what'd you say? Yeah, I got Xbox.
Like you said
all
council.
Day.
Yeah.
That's what I thought too. I was like a council. I was like, is this like a new thing that we're doing? But no, I got Xbox. I was like,
what am I missing already? But let's run down the show real quick. Obviously, we're going to recap the 2 college football semifinals. We're going to preview Monday night's game between Michigan and Washington. We're going to preview the FCS championship as well between Montana and South Dakota State. Why? Because we can. Because we follow all college football. That's why. We're going to talk about the portal. Some people are excited for different reasons in the portal. We'll go over that. And then we're gonna have a little bit of fun, and we're gonna talk about who we think is going to be on the cover. There's been a bunch of different leaks, and a lot of them have been confirmed to be not true. So, we're gonna go over who we think is going to be announced on Monday night to be the cover athlete of NCAA 24, which I think we all have very high hopes for, and because the old NCAA games, in my opinion, are always better than Madden. I think they're some of the best games ever made. And then we'll probably just get into some general discussion about, just anything. I mean, if we have time. So, I mean, that's the fun nature of this week's show. And of course, we the 3 of us got into kind of going over our team schedule for 2024. So maybe we'll do that on here. One team is at least playing a major schedule. One team is not. And one team is kind of in between. But I don't know. It's like they knew like they had to give the defending champions a tough schedule next year. Just saying, it's kind of weird.
Washington's schedule looks tough.
They're just sick of seeing Cottrell with the haymaker. I'm gonna say I think it's because they're sick of seeing Michigan in the Natty, or sick of seeing them in the college football playoff. I'm sick of seeing that yellow and blue. They're trying to knock them out next year so other people can enjoy their team's success.
Listen, if we win Monday, I can't even tell you how much I don't care what happens next year.
I look, you get like a 6-year reprieve, not gonna lie.
Do.
Like my time is up, so like I can't steal bask in 2014. Like I can mention it, but like I can't like fall back on that. Like
you're outside the window now.
Yeah, I'm outside the window, exactly. But like now you're gonna be good to like 2030. So like nothing matters.
No, like if somebody gives me shit in 2027, I'm just gonna start yelling 2023.
Exactly, and that's okay. Like you get a free pass.
right.
Alex,
So
I know
answer-
you can't relate. I know your team. You're not used to it's uncharted territories for you, but
haymaker, Alex. Not funny when you're getting hit in the face, is it? All right,
That's
let's get
not
started. Well, let's get started. Let's start last week. Let's start recapping with 2 semifinal games. Listen, if you're a college football fan, even if you don't like any of these 4 teams, you were blessed with 2 great games. I'm gonna give our show and even Wire to Wire credit, because when we're right. They were 2 distinctly different type of football games, just like we said they were going to be. Michigan and Alabama is going to be a little more physical, a little more smash mouth. Close game went to overtime. You got to Texas, Washington, and it was a little bit more aired out, a little bit more up and down the field, and a little, I won't say loosey goosey, but a little bit more, open in the playbook, shall we say? And both games didn't disappoint. Which game? Who's pushing the buttons today?
I got the buttons. But we are starting with, I would assume.
We'll do the recaps first. I wasn't able to make the slides for the 2 recap games. I focused way too much energy on the net championship slides.
All right. Well, so for all the people that are going to call customer service and complain this morning, direct your emails to Alex Elmore. I mean, it's not even like he lives on that West Coast. You got 3 extra hours to get stuff done, but I mean, it's fine. It's fine.
Alex, you're getting all the shots today. All the shots.
That's cool, man. I'll take them because I gotta dish them out later. So bring them on now while you can.
So we'll start with Michigan, Alabama. 27-20 in the Rose Bowl. The granddaddy of them all, the best setting in college football. I love that a lot of people after the game are saying they should play the national championship there every year. I couldn't agree more with that.
Especially now.
Yeah, I agree. I actually wish that would have got more steam before they decided on all the playoff spots for the next couple of years already, because they're already predetermined, unfortunately. But I think that's great. I mean, because if you're being quite honestly, it's about as neutral as it gets. And Alex, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm just simply saying, if a team from that section of the country doesn't make it, everybody's got to travel there. Like, you don't run in like for instance, if Texas would have won Monday, they pretty much would have had a home game Monday night in Houston. And that part of it I don't like, because the national championship game should be neutral. But Kirk Herbstreit and a bunch of guys, commented after that, they really should have considered just making the Rose Bowl the national championship every year. And I think that would have been amazing. It's not going to happen. So don't get your hopes up, because it would make too much sense. But
Bill, you're basically saying all the West Coast teams suck. That's basically
what I said. It's not what I said.
He said they're never going to make it to the national championship game, so everybody else is going to have to travel to California. That's what he said.
Alex, don't listen. That's not what I said.
That is.
I mean, he is paraphrasing, but in layman's terms, it is what you said.
See, exactly.
But I didn't say it was never going to happen. I said except for the one-off chance.
The one-off chance. Yeah.
One-off chance.
See, he's saying that it's not very likely.
Make it every year.
Look, all I can say is this:
2 out of 150.
The Rose Bowl. Whose home field is the Rose Bowl?
At this point, it should be Ohio State, but
but it's UCLA. They are never making it to the national championship. So I'm cool with it being at the Rose Bowl every year. I got a quick little hour-and-a-half flight down south. Y'all can come out to nicer weather. Nobody's complaining. So I'm cool with it. But Bill, how dare you say that we won't wake you very often?
This is gonna be a long show.
Just think, we got to deal with this energy is going to be us all next year, all in the same conference. We all play each other. This is going to be great.
Yeah, we might have to change the name of the show next year.
Yeah, just Big Ten.
Yeah, because even Gene at that point, Gene's still Big Ten. Well, I don't know. We'll see.
You never know.
Gene, never know. Well, I mean,
what time frame we're talking. If it's November, he'll probably be down in SEC country. But October, September. Oh yeah, he's Big Ten with us.
There we go.
It's true.
Oh man, 27-20, Bill. You had one of the, like I said, we thought it was going to be a defensive showdown. It was just kind of a tale of 2 halves, and then overtime was another momentum change. I mean, how are you feeling during the entire game? I mean, obviously we're enjoying a good football game, but you had something actually up for grabs. How did you feel while watching?
It was nerve wracking. I'll say this: they came out on fire. Kind of, supplanted themselves right away on the line of the defensive line really, dominating up front, and I love that part of it. But yet, I mean, Alabama still scored first, and I feel like we really were definitely the way better team in the first half, and to go into halftime only up 13-10. I know we joke about it a lot, but I mean, in my opinion, Nick Saban's best college coach ever. You have to give the man his credit. Knowing he's going to go in the locker room, there's going to be a lot of hooting and hollering and yelling and motivating, and on top of that, there's going to be adjustments. Nick Saban is historically famously known for changing defenses, at halftime and coming out, and it was kind of a prototypical Nick Saban thing. It was they came out in the second half, they made defensive adjustments. We started getting too cute with our play calling, and of course, he got the offense going, and I was like, here it comes. When they went up, 20-13, I won't lie, it got very worrisome at that point. I will give Jim Harbaugh credit. When it was 4th and 2 on their own 30, I thought for sure he was going to punt the ball and try to get the ball back. He went for it. They ran that pretty little slip play to Blake Corum out in the flat, and he went for like 40 yards. Then I thought we had a chance. That I got a little bit more optimistic at that point. And then, they went in and scored. I went from super, it was one of those momentum swings where I got super confident to, I was like, why do we score too fast? Too fast. I'm like, the one thing I was confident about is they could not throw the ball all day. They wanted nothing to do with Will Johnson. They took their shots earlier in the game, which they've done earlier in the year. Cottrell's mentioned it, even Alex and Gene some as well. That was pretty much the extent of their passing game all year. It was little dinks and dunks, or Jalen Miller trying to throw a bomb. Michigan was very cognizant of that, took it away early. They didn't go back to it at all the rest of the game. But a minute and 30 in college football, especially when they stop the clock for first down, stuff like that, that is an eternity. Their field goal kicker was kicking the ball. He was going to be good from 60 if they had to try it. So I was like, they take the touchback. They need 35 yards in a minute and a half to get in the field goal range. Got another huge sack, another crazy fumble. Then Alabama was kind of like, all right, we're just going to go to overtime and take our chances. Nothing ever was just easy for me on that game. You go into overtime, you always want your team to be able to play defense first. We lost the toss again, had to play to offense. And then Blake Corum just did Blake Corum things. I don't know if I really being a Michigan fan and watching that kid play for literally 3.5 years now. I don't know if I quite really have the words for him yet. To think, you look at Ohio State. Ohio State is wide receiver U. Michigan always has good running backs. And there's been some really, really, really good running backs that have come out of that school. And he's probably the best running back to ever play at Michigan. And I think that's kind of crazy to say. But I think that's really where he is. I mean, that kid is the heart and soul of that team. He came back this year for this reason. And he hasn't let that team down in one big spot. You go back to the Penn State game, go back to the Ohio State game. Now the national semifinal. Every time they need him, he rips off some enormous play. They scored. I will be honest, 4th and 3. I didn't want to think that it was over, but I'm sure both of you and everybody else in the country, you knew what was going to be called there. So I looked at it. Jesse Minter has been great as Michigan's DC all year. I was like, as long as he doesn't try to outthink himself here, I think we're okay. And then, Milroe went in that just sea of humanity of all these huge dudes just piling on each other. And there was nowhere to go, and that was it. And it was very exciting. It was very relieving. It was very exciting to watch them kind of rush the field was awesome. It's not quite the end. I need to see it Monday night for it to really to really cap everything off. But that is a game in the past that we would lose. So I would say, it was very, very. It was exciting to watch them rise to the challenge and answer the bell at the end. And this team's done it all year. I mean, so it's. I'm very hopeful and trying to be optimistic about Monday night. But it was. That being said, it was still a fun moment.
So it's it's funny that like some of the things that you said there, like I had like a couple big takeaways from it. Number one being, I know what Blake has done for Michigan, like what his numbers look like. And I might be crazy saying it, but like I still think Donovan Edwards is a better running back and will be a better running back, not career wise, but like
he's a better NFL prospect.
What you see next year, he will look better than what Blake did. But like Blake's numbers are undeniable at this point.
Agreed.
The other thing too is that I'm 100% with you. Seeing how bad Alabama looked in that first half, knowing that they were only going in down 3, definitely made me feel like this was an Alabama game to win. Like it felt like Michigan had dominated. I even said it on Wire to Wire. I felt like pretty much throughout the whole game, Michigan looked like the better team. I know they looked very lethargic coming out in the second half. Like the offense wasn't moving the ball. You had some drops, some missed passes, things like that. But to me, it never felt like Michigan ever like didn't look like the better team in that game. And so even when Alabama went up, I thought at that point, like, this is over. Alabama's going to win this football game, and they're not even, like, playing like they're the better team. Michigan's really just shooting themselves in the foot. The turnovers, like I said, missed passes, drop balls, things like that. And, you bring up the fourth down on your own 30. I 100% knew Jim was going for it there, but I thought that was because he had that much confidence in the defense. Like, hey, even if we turn the ball over here, we know their kicker's making it from everywhere 50 and in, potentially, even further than 50. But I felt like he just had the trust in his defense. Perfect play call. Obviously, Alabama had been running man all night, and that is one thing that I will get on Saban about. He made great adjustments throughout the entire game. Man coverage pretty much didn't work, and they ran it every single time that like a play needed to be made. That fourth down, well, not the fourth down, but the play that Blake Corum actually scored on to tie the game, man coverage slipped out. And
Roman Wilson.
Yeah, so Blake slipped out the backfield. Roman Wilson got free on the drag there, but man coverage had been an issue for them all night. Alabama wasn't able to pass things off, communicate correctly. So I don't know why you'd go man coverage there. I get, you want to make a play, it's tight quarters, things like that, but flat was wide open to Blake Corum for an easy first down pickup. So that's like my one gripe with Saban there. I love the fourth down play call. Originally, I thought I hated it with Jalen Milroe in overtime. It was an RPO. It got open. Running back out leveraged the linebacker that was supposed to be covering him. Bad snap. Jalen Milroe didn't even get a chance to read anything. Went straight up the middle, and obviously that was the game there. But it was a great game. And the other thing that I did want to touch on too, no matter how great these games are, Alabama and Michigan was absolutely phenomenal. Washington, Texas was absolutely phenomenal. Don't let that distract you from the fact that Florida State still deserved to be in. Did the committee make the right call in picking the 4 best or the four teams that would give us the most entertaining playoff? Yeah. I mean, after seeing those games, I don't know how you could argue that. But let's not just automatically say Florida State had no business being in these games, because you never know what could happen. If Michigan and Alabama are turning the ball over the way that they were turning the ball over in their game, and those were unforced issues, Florida State might have been able to hang around as well. So just wanted to throw that tidbit in there as well to make sure the people haven't forgotten.
I'm going to say this real quick before I let Alex come in. I think Milroe had, 104 passing yards, something like that.
No, it was 116.
116. Florida State's defense, especially up front, is arguably better than Alabama's. I think it is better than Alabama's. Alabama's back end is obviously better. I will tell you, if Florida State would have went to the Rose Bowl and played Michigan, the game would have looked very, very similar. very similar. They would have tried to run the ball, which I was shocked. That was the one thing, I said it Wednesday night, that I was shocked that they got away from. I think they tried to force Milroe too much because Chase McClanahan and the other freshmen, they ran the ball well. They ran the ball effectively. I mean, McClanahan had 17 carries for like 90 yards or something like that, and 2 touchdowns. Like every time every time they went to the right side, they had success, and they just stopped doing it. That was surprising. That's more on Tommy Rees than Nick Saban, obviously. But I'm not saying you get an overtime thriller. I'm not saying Florida State wins the game. I'm telling you, all the people that use the excuse, if Florida State plays Michigan, they're going to lose by 30. That wouldn't have happened. I'm telling you, it wouldn't have happened. Florida State's defense is very good. That all those guys that either transferred out, hit the portal, or decided to sit out and declare, they all would have played. You would not have got the team that played Georgia. You would have got their full team minus Travis Henry. Jordan Travis, sorry. They would have went up there and played their hearts out. And the people are like, oh, well, yeah. And I told you this when it happened. They gave them Georgia on purpose. If you went by their criteria, they should have fallen further down. They gave them Georgia on purpose because they knew there's definitely going to be opt-outs because the game became meaningless. They knew, Coleman and all those guys were not going to play. And then you got a bunch of other guys at the portal. It's okay, yeah, they lost by 60 to Georgia. Yeah, no crap. Georgia played their starters. Florida State was missing 19 starters out of 22. Like, what do you think was going to happen? That game is not indicative of their season to me. I still do. I still feel awful for what happened to them. And if you want to take the Nick Saban part out of it, did Alabama really impress you that much that you thought they had to be there after watching that performance? They really didn't for me. But it is.
Michigan is the number 1 defense in the country. I mean, what did you expect to see that would have put Alabama in that deserving spot for you? But they had to beat you to be deserving?
My point is, how much different do you think it would have looked if Florida State was there? That was everybody's argument. Florida State was going to lose by 30 to play Michigan. That was everybody's excuse because they were going to play their backup quarterback. Jalen Milroe had 114 yards passing. I bet you that kid from Florida State could have got 100 yards passing. So if you get to that point, then what is really the difference in the game? That's my point.
Especially if Michigan's turning the ball over.
Correct. So
unforced. It's not like Bama, punched the ball out and did things like that. Like we're talking about drop punts and
all the special team stuff had nothing to do with Alabama. So you can't even say, oh, well, Alabama forced 3 turnovers. Florida State might not do that, because that's a logical argument at that point. That's not what happened in that game. We were dropping punts. We couldn't catch punts. Like, we almost got a damn safety to end the goddamn game at the end. Like, it's stuff like that. Alabama is a very good football team. I'm not saying they're not.
Correct.
I'm just saying, and that was never my argument. Florida State was deserving to be there. And then you got people, oh, if they would have beat Georgia, they could have been, 14-0. Cool. They've been 14-0 and finished the year number 2. And nobody would have cared. Like, that's what I mean. Like, there was going to be no, moral championship victory here for Florida State if they beat Georgia. That game was meaningless for them. It meant nothing. There wasn't going to be some argument 20 years from now, like, oh, well, yeah, Florida State was 14-0. Well, you can't use that argument and be like, oh, well, yeah, they're kind of co-championships, because you people didn't even believe in them enough to give them a chance to win the real one. So now you're going to tell me that you want to have an argument saying they're co-champions with either Michigan or Washington come Monday night? No, it makes no sense. The only trophy that matters is going to be the Monday night one, and it's going to go either to Spokane, it's going to Ann Arbor. That's where it's going, and that's who's going to be champions. If Florida State was 14-0, they were never getting any recognition. They can go hang their own banner and do whatever they want, like Central Florida. It's just funny that people are like, oh, well, they should have done this to get this. No, they should have been given the opportunity that they deserve to prove it. And if they lost, they lost. And then that whole narrative gets put to bed. Nobody cares anymore. But now people, it's just all I don't like the shitting on the Florida State program now. Like, you have a 13-0 year and you have that great of a year and you do everything you are told to do, and they get ripped away for other reasons, and let's just be honest with the stuff that's already come out now, it was done for other reasons. You can't be mad at those kids. Like if I'm in Florida State and I'm like, I go 13-0 and I don't get a chance to play for the championship, like why am I staying here? Like I'm in Florida State. This isn't Central Florida. This is Florida State. They're like one of the best of, if not the best team in the 90s. They're rebuilt. Florida State is a major brand in college football. Let's just be honest. If I go 13-0, don't lose to anybody, beat 2 SEC schools, win my conference, Power 5, undefeated, and I don't get a chance to play for the championship, why the hell am I staying here?
You think Bill's a Florida State fan?
I'm not. But have I said anything that's wrong?
I mean, I totally think Michigan steamrolls Florida State without Jordan Travis. But continue. You're on a roll.
Cottrell, do you? I think we all agree Michigan wins the game, and I'm again. That's not what I'm saying. That's not my argument. We got 27-20 overtime with Alabama. Everybody's argument was Michigan was going to win the game like Georgia did, and all I'm saying is that wasn't going to happen. There's no more
23-13 Michigan win.
Exactly, and don't tell me that's not a good game then. And then
They're
everybody's like,
not
nobody's
Florida State's not scoring 13 on Michigan's defense with Tate Rodemaker. Come on.
You do realize that one of Bama's touchdowns literally came. They got the ball gift wrapped in the red zone. They ran one play to the right. Jace McClellan went on and scored.
You cannot compare apples to apples. You can't do that. You can't say what if. We can do what if all
it's
okay. What
not,
if Oregon? And,
no. See, this is the difference though. If Oregon would have took care of business against Washington, then we could be having that conversation about them being.
But we don't have that conversation because
Florida State didn't do. Florida State. This is the difference though. Florida State couldn't have done anything else to get into the playoff. Like there is no what if Florida State did this. He got hurt on a run play that he got a first down on. So it's not like they didn't protect him. There was nothing there that you could change with Florida State. Like they won, they took care of everything they needed to. They got wins. They won the ACC championship without Jordan Travis and without their backup quarterback. Like there's nothing else they could have done.
Hey, Jordan Travis, we're playing a high school team this week. Maybe don't run. Considering he got hurt against a team that beat 63-3, like, come on now.
See now,
this game plan.
This is how I know I'm on the right side of this because people are making statements like that. Like, hey, Jordan Travis, don't play football in this play. Like, come on, man.
Exactly.
Like, that's
Think with your brain, bro. Think with your future. Come on now. Your whole team got left out of the Natty because of that play. I bet quarterbacks start thinking a little bit differently going forward after with this whole turmoil. I bet.
Like to the point, like when you're playing,
this will change. Yeah, this will change college football for the worse for sure.
It will. Like, hey, we're playing blah blah blah. You know what?
We're playing the Citadel starters. You're not playing.
Sorry, starters. You can't play because we can't have the committee. If one of you guys gets a sprained ankle, we can't make the playoff now. Oh, Jordan Travis. Buddy, I know you're the front runner for the Heisman. You're not playing this week. Sorry, you got to sit down because we can't risk losing you. That's the narrative they sent, and that's crap. I'm telling you, too, if anybody from – I don't think it's going to happen because I do think there's going to be more fallout for it down the road. But, it'll happen in the middle of the year, like when they'll, try to get buried under, like, some other news cycle. Nobody from that committee this year better be on that committee ever again. Like, ever again. Like, they better start from scratch next year.
I do know they are making some changes next year to the committee because, like, I know Gene Smith is retiring, and they're with the conference realignment. Like, I know they don't want like too many schools like represented from like the same conference or whatever. So I know there's going to be some changes to the committee next year. Just don't know what that ultimately looks like.
We got a little off track here, but Alex, I honestly do want to hear your thoughts on the game and your reactions and. What you think went right and wrong and everything else.
The Alabama-Michigan game, just like we saw, a defensive battle. I was really surprised when Michigan came out. I think that they kind of went against their tendencies, trying to kind of keep Alabama off schedule for them. Coming out with 3 straight pass plays. I did not see that coming out the gate. Obviously 3 now.
Nor did I.
And then obviously the punt happened. Alabama got the ball. Michigan did force a quick 3 now, just like you want to. Alabama punted the ball. Then we had the first fumble, which caused obviously the ultimate touchdown. But ultimately from there, it was kind of back and forth. I mean, Michigan kind of became themselves again on their second possession, on a 10-play, 75-yard drive. And once that happened, I knew we were in for a ground and pound hell of a game as soon as that drive happened, and it was 7-7. I got a little nervous for you, Bill, in the fourth quarter when they missed the field goal down 17-13. I got a little bit nervous when that happened. But then again, like I said, I mean, Michigan just found ways to battle back in. J.J. McCarthy made some great throws. I was talking a lot last week about how he hasn't thrown for over 150 yards in 4 straight weeks. And, he showed up this last week with 3 touchdown passes, 227 yards. I mean, this is honestly, I think you said it on Wire to Wire, or Gene said it to Wire, that his last drive down the field, to tie the game up at 20, that's a drive you send to NFL scouts. Like, he looked in complete control of his guys. They were looking to him in the huddle. He was making throws, keeping everybody calm. I saw no pressure on anybody's face. I mean, that's the exact drive you expect your quarterback to give you in that moment. We saw flashes of how good he could be last year when they came back in the game. They ultimately lost to TCU. So it was nice to see him lead his troops down the field and actually take them to the next game and have a chance to win the national championship. Blake Corum had over 120 total yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he did exactly what he needed to do. When I was watching that last play in overtime, Alabama kind of botched a little bit and ultimately cost them the game. We were talking in the group chat about, man, how do you call that play? But then it wasn't until like the next day when they were really breaking down tape and really showing what was actually supposed to happen that play. It was supposed to be an RPO. They had the running back going out to the flats, and they had 2 blockers in front of him. If that snap is good, we're going to a second overtime. And ultimately that center ended up transferring out of Alabama. Who knows what his reasons were? Obviously, it's pretty obvious what they were. But like I said, the play that Nick Saban called, just like Bill said, Nick Saban is a genius. The play he called was fantastic. It was going to work. The only thing that could have botched it happened, the bad snap. And that's where we play these games. And I'm looking forward to – I would have been happy with whoever came out of that game. And, Bill, I am happy it was you. I did pick Alabama. But for me, this game was a pick 'em. And I'm glad that I'm able to talk shit to you one more week.
No, not happy. No, not happy whatsoever. It's funny. I told Gene, we were talking a couple days ago, like not on the show. And I was like, yeah, I still got to hate Bill for another week. Like, I hope he's miserable starting Monday night. And then on Tuesday, we could be friends again. But like right now, no, not rooting for you. I want you to be sad and, all that stuff.
Gene's my only real friend on the show. He wants to see my team succeed and me be happy for the next 364 days. He's my only real goddamn friend on the show.
Nope. We could be friends on like the 10th.
Like, I saw y'all after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I'm good. I don't want to see that again, Bill.
Oh, what are you sad you don't have an NFL team? That's not my problem. Tell somebody in Oregon to get some goddamn money and move a team there.
I got a 49ers onesie on right now, custom, homemade onesie. Okay, I'm good.
So I do want to go back to Saban because he was on a bunch of shows and then he was on McAfee. He was talking. I want to go over 2 things that both you guys brought up. He said the one thing that threw them off defensively was so many teams in college football now literally just kind of get the play called in, line up, and then usually look to the sign, get their checks, their signals, and then shift. Michigan actually huddled all night, and he said it threw them off because they would come out of the huddle, and the kids had to kind of run the line to match. And then when Michigan started shifting, it screwed them up, kind of like, this gets back to what Cottrell brought up earlier. They weren't switching their assignments correctly. You guys breaking over into like huge chunks of space with nobody covering them because, guys weren't following or guys thought they were checking the zone and they weren't. He said that they were not prepared for, and that really surprised them. And the second thing was he actually said the first call they had for overtime on that play, they loved. Michigan obviously saw the look, called timeout to adjust. Michigan then came out in a different defense, and Saban's like, we hated that look, so we called our timeout. He's like, and then he said the mistake they made was when they went back out for the play they actually ultimately ran. Obviously, the snap messed it up a little bit, but he kind of intimated that they weren't really going to run the option part of that anyway. I think it was still supposed to go Milroe. I think it was just the snap kind of made him speed up a little bit more than they wanted to. He said the part they screwed up is when they went out for the actual play, they said they still didn't really like the look, and they should have gave Milroe a play to check to, and they didn't. Like they should have had a play where they could have looked and be like, "Hey, Audubon, we're going to this," and they didn't, which kind of forced their hand. So that was kind of cool to like for him to come on and kind of be not that he's never honest. I mean, he's brutally honest sometimes, which makes him funny, but it was cool for him to kind of pull back the curtain and say like, hey, this is what happened here. This is what happened here. Because a lot of coaches don't do that. So that was very interesting to hear. Overall, again, obviously I'm ecstatic with the outcome of the game. For them to finally get over the hump, beat Alabama, obviously, which you ever beat Alabama in a bowl game, it's something, it's a feather in your hat for sure. But we'll get to Monday night in a couple minutes here, but let's get to the other game, because the other game was equally as exciting for, I think, different reasons. And we had a great ending there too, when I didn't think we were going to have one. Washington, Texas, a lot of people were all over Texas. This game kind of, it didn't play out the way I thought it was going to, in regard, like the score was kind of very close to what I picked, but it was a little bit of a messier game than I thought both these teams were going to play, if I'm being honest, especially from the Texas side. But this was the type of game that I thought, it's kind of the reason why I picked Washington. I thought this is kind of what it was going to boil down to. And it was kind of, I thought the resiliency was going to matter a little bit. And I thought they had matchups they could exploit. And I think some people were a little bit overconfident in that Texas defense, and I wasn't one of them. I thought you could run the ball on them, and I knew they were going to be able to throw the ball on them. I think people were still reeling the Texas bandwagon because obviously they have a stable of receivers that are great as well, and they have Quinn Ewers. I mean, it's hard. If you were a Texas fan, it was hard not to be confident going into that game. You got to call it like it is. I mean, I think Michael Penix Jr. outplayed Quinn Ewers, and if you would have asked me before the game if that would have been the case, I don't know if I would have picked that. I think Quinn Ewers is the better quarterback. He's definitely a better pro prospect. Michael Penix Jr. is just having a hell of a year. And he's 3 years older than Ewers, probably more than that. It was another tale of teams, executing when they had to, and also teams making mistakes to keep the other team in the game. It is but it was a hell of a game. I mean, it delivered at the end again. I mean, Quinn Ewers hit that bomb. I see them get the ball at the 2-yard line. I was like, they don't have enough time to get on the field. Like, and then he turns around and hits like a 45-yard play, and I'm like, oh. Yeah. They have 30 seconds, and now they're like on the 20. I'm like, that's an eternity in football. You know what I mean? So I was like, Texas is going to pull this game out. This is crazy. Like I went from like Washington has this to holy crap. Like Texas is going to pull this. Like Texas is going to sneak out of here with a win in the course of like 30 seconds. I was back down to normal heart rate at that point, obviously coming off my high, but if I was a Washington or Texas fan watching the end of that game, I'd have been going crazy. That was debatably more stressful than the end of my game. I'll go to Cottrell first on this one. You're a big Quinn guy for obvious reasons. I'm a big Quinn guy. I think he's very good. But again, I think Michael Penix outplayed him. And I think Washington. I hate to say it too. This is kind of one of the reasons I picked Washington. I think Washington had a better game plan. And they finally just, got enough rhythm to pull it off. I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah. So you talk about game plan. I'm a Kalen DeBoer fan. He coaches his ass off in these types of games, and whatever way you slice it with him, he's a guy who knows what to say to his team to get the most out of them in certain situations. So I say that because, there was times throughout this season where it felt like Washington was always in a position to lose a football game. and they somehow always found a way to come out on the right side of things. Now, normally with teams like that, you're going to find it like you're going to make one mistake too many in a game and then find a way to lose it. But to me, at least, Washington always looks prepared in their games. It's about how they look in like the intermediate portions to how they close the game out. And I thought this was a great job. He had a game plan. They were going to attack downfield versus this Texas secondary. And, we had heard all week about how good Texas the defensive line is, which, they are phenomenal. Don't get it twisted. But Washington knew what they had to do up front. They protected Michael Penix Jr. very well. And Michael Penix Jr. had a lot of audacity in the sense of he didn't care how tight a window was. He knew what he could do to get the ball there, and he trusted his receivers to make plays all night. The back shoulder throw with pressure in his face to Rome Odunze up the sideline was absolutely incredible. The touchdown pass to McMillan between the corner and the backside safety, thread and needle there, absolutely incredible. And then the other thing, too, is that Washington didn't have continuous success running the football, but when they needed to, Dillon Johnson was able to just, change a little bit of pace and pick up some key first downs here and there. So I give Washington a lot of credit for being prepared for that game because I definitely thought it was going to be a shootout. And, to the flip side of that, Texas also did shoot themselves in the foot a couple times. I know Washington forced a fumble, but poor bad ball security there, had the ball in the wrong hand with defenders around him. Like that's stuff that could be cleaned up. But overall, definitely was a great game. And I even said it on Wire to Wire. The one other thing that I'll add with Dillon Johnson, I understand that he was hurt there and, probably felt like the worst pain in the world. You have to know, and I'm not blaming him or anything, but like just in general, you have to know that situation. And regardless, like you got to just like, if you can get somebody to help you, 2 arms, you can't let that injury timeout happen there. Everybody on the field has to know that. And you've seen it on other games like Byron Leftwich at Marshall, obviously one that comes to mind. Broken leg. He's like, got to get back in the huddle. Can't let this time waste off. But that's just, I think, a situational thing where even if he can't get up, his lineman would be like, hey, we'll carry you to the sidelines. Like, we got to run this time off.
Look, man, on that play it was 3rd and 10. Okay. They're trying to run the clock out. Why not just hand it off? You're not going to get 10 yards on an inside handoff. Why not just kneel? Why not take the time off guarantee without risking injury? Why pull a Mario Cristobal and even try to run the ball there and risk turnover?
That's not a Mario Cristobal because the time wouldn't have run out. Like you kneel the ball, that takes 1 or 2 seconds.
15 seconds left.
But if you hand the ball off, it could be like 8 seconds or 7 seconds. Like I understand why you hand the ball off there, but I mean, I see both sides of it. I'll say that. I don't think it's a blunder by DeBoer though. Because if you hand the ball off and you get like 4 or 5 yards, and that takes
he got 5 yards. He got 5 yards on the play. It was 4th and 4 when they punted. He got 5 yards on the rush play.
But Dillon Johnson didn't get up.
No, he did not. He did not get up. You're dang right about that. And now he's questionable for Monday. But the point is that Dillon Johnson, like I said, they should have kneeled the ball there. There's a couple questionable. You guys are talking about Kalen DeBoer. He coaches for his guys. There's a couple questionable. I picked Washington to win. But there's a couple moments in this game where their coaching actually did leave me a little bit wanting more and kind of curious what made him make that call. And that is one of them. I thought to myself, boom, kneel it out here, pump the ball, get him inside their own 10. With 15 seconds left, game over. Instead, he ran the ball. Injury happens. Not to mention, it's not like an injury to a backup running back. It's the injury to their 1,000-yard rusher, the guy who's ran for 700 yards against ranked opponents this year. Like, this isn't just some like random bench warmer. This is like their guy. So it made me a little bit upset to see that they're going to the national championship with Dillon Johnson a little banged up. But what you both hit the nail on the head in this game was absolutely phenomenal. I was talking about how Washington won this game with like 5 minutes left in the game, and then all of a sudden Texas makes this comeback and has a chance to win at the end there honestly, it could have been called pass interference on that last play. I don't know if you guys have that same opinion or not. on Adonai Mitchell. The guy had his hand was pushing off of him to ultimately deflect the pass. Did you guys happen to see that angle? And do you guys think that it was a pass interference?
I saw the angle last play of the game. There's absolutely no way in the world that I'm calling that.
It's got to be egregious. It's got to be like your hand inside your jersey, like pulling them down. Like it's got to be something where they look at it and be like, the dude absolutely had no chance to catch the ball anymore because of what the defender did. I'm not necessarily saying by the letter of the law you're wrong. I agree with Cottrell. In that spot of the game, it has to be egregious to get called.
Plus, they had been letting them play pretty much all night. Like you hadn't seen any. There was no ticky-tack calls. Like everything that I saw they got called for the most part was pretty egregious. The one that they called on Jabbar I thought was a little questionable. Like I thought he was there at a good time, but I mean outside of that, I thought they were letting them play. So just how the game flow was going, I wouldn't have caught that one there.
But I do think that Texas kind of got into Washington, or Washington kind of got into Texas's head a little bit. I did expect Texas to run the ball a little bit more, kind of like how Bill had mentioned. They were having a lot of success on the ground. CJ Baxter was averaging 7.1 yards per carry, but only touched the ball 9 times. 64 yards and a touchdown off of those 9 carries. I am surprised they didn't try to control the clock a little bit more. Obviously, they did. Washington actually was able to dominate time of possession in this game by about 5 or 6 minutes. And, with Quinn Ewers going off for 318 yards, Michael Penix Jr. going off for another 430. I mean, this was the game I was hoping for. And as a West Coast guy, this is the exact football game that I wanted to see to close the night out. And I'm happy that Washington won. Pac-12 going out in style, going to a national championship game. But this is exactly what I wanted to happen. So I'm excited to talk about this game with you guys. It was pretty straightforward. It was a great game. I mean, there's really, if you saw it, you know what I'm talking about.
So the one thing that I do want to add, because I'm with you, Alex, it felt like even early on, you could tell that Texas was going to dominate the line of scrimmage in terms of running the football. But I think Texas got very off schedule when Washington got the lead and how they got the lead. So they were chasing a possession, right before half, they scored a touchdown to tie it up right before half. But they were pretty much chasing points the entire second half. Washington got up, they were up 7, and then Texas fumbled, and then Washington ultimately got up 10. And at that point, they were just kind of chasing. So I get them trying to go downfield and score more because their defense really couldn't stop Washington. So they knew if it was going to be a track meet, they would have to score and score fast just to get the ball back to make that up. So I think that's really why they got away from it. But I'm 100% with you. After seeing how well Texas running the football, I definitely thought they were going to run the ball more often.
Well, here's a little comment just to make. Last year, and this obviously the Ducks did not play in this game, but as a reflective thing looking back, Oregon was up by I think it was 28. Justin can correct me in the comments. Against Oregon, Oregon State was down 28 points to Oregon, and they ran the ball the entire second half and came back and ended up winning the game. So I get what you're saying. They kind of got off schedule trying to keep up, but I also think that you can control the game even better by continuing to run the ball. And honestly, if they keep handing the ball to CJ Baxter the way he was running, I think you take a full touchdown off the board for Washington with them controlling the clock. And I think we may have a different outcome if they just would have stuck to that ground game. To be completely honest with you, that's how bad Washington looked. And when the Ducks had success against Washington, it's when they were able to run the ball and not become one-dimensional. The second time they played Washington, they became very one-dimensional. That's ultimately why Washington looked 10 times better than the Ducks in that Pac-12 championship game. So I think Sark needs to kind of calm down a little bit in this situation next year when he's in the same position and call some more conservative plays, control the clock, control the ball, and not panic so fast. And I think, like I said, this game could have easily been reversed.
Yeah, I agree. I think Texas had advantages where they stopped exploiting them, per se. Listen, I mean, Texas's defensive line was supposed to be great against the rush. I didn't think it was. I knew it was going to get tested. I think the biggest disadvantage they had there, Texas's front four didn't generate any pressure by themselves, really, against, with any kind of pass rush. That plays right into Washington's hands. And then on top of that, Washington could still run the ball. That really neutralized the best part of Texas's defense. And then on the flip side, again, I think with the way Washington was scoring at times at ease, I think Sarkisian should have ran the ball more. Take more time off the clock. Take the air out of the ball a little bit. You were having success with both backs. You didn't have to be the Quinn Ewers show to win that game. And I think in hindsight, I think he probably would have done that a little bit more. But that being said, we ended up with Michigan, Washington. Do you want to preview it now, or do you want to do some other stuff and circle back to this at the end?
I said we circle back to it. I
agree.
I said we hit the portal and then go FCS and then finish with the big one.
All right, I'm for that. So let's get to the portal. A couple big things this week that that have happened. Ohio State gets their quarterback, I guess. I don't know. We have different views. I will. It is Cottrell's team. I will let him speak first on that one. We had a very surprising name enter the portal from Ole Miss, who is going to be very coveted. There's differing versions of out there of what would have happened already. I tend to lean one way versus the other because I don't trust the one guy as far as I can throw him. And some surprising news, I think, with a guy that we talked about last week about where he was going to land. So I'm going to start there. Cam Ward, after all the guy was the first one in the portal. Seems like he visited every damn school in the world. We thought he was down to, we had reports that he was down to Miami and Florida State, and then DJU committed to Florida State. So I think we were kind of just all waiting for the formality of him, coming to Miami, and then out of nowhere, he entered the draft.
Smart kid.
I guess
over going to Miami, take your chances in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, you could make an argument there. So I will definitely agree with you on that one. I don't know if Mario Cristobal is actually the guy you want to go to, to help your draft stock per se, for a team that kind of looks like the building might be on fire right now. But that being said, he's not a first 2-round guy right now, in my opinion. And we talked about this before. Third-day quarterbacks or where kids go to die, man. You are not going to be guaranteed a roster spot if you get drafted down there. You are not going to make a lot of money. I find it very hard to believe that for what he's going to get guaranteed. And if he doesn't make a roster, he would have made more staying in college. I guarantee you that.
Yep.
I'm a little perplexed by this one. I mean, he visited a lot of schools where he could have had the pick of the litter because he was the first big name in the portal. And he talked to a lot of schools, apparently. I don't know. I'd be curious to find out why he didn't decide to pick one of these schools. I don't know how much money he thought he was worth or what he thought he was getting. I don't know if that's where the breakdown was or if it was somebody not willing just to hand him the keys for next year. If that's where the issue was. But
I think he waited too long. I think he just took too damn long. I think coaches got tired of waiting around. They had to get someone to commit so they could get their the high school recruits in, like, hey, this is our quarterback, this is our guy. And he was taking so long to make his decision. Coaches, I think, just moved on.
I mean, I do think that's a
part of it.
I do think that's a part of it, but like DJ just committed like a few days ago. Like it wasn't like things like the process got accelerated. The one thing that I'm kind of confused about is I almost wonder, did someone get in his ear? Like, did he talk to people like around the NFL? Did they tell him like, hey, you're a 4th-round pick pretty much no matter what? I don't know what that was, but I wonder if they tell him like you're a 4th-round pick, like no matter what, like you go back to school, there's not really much you can improve on, or your draft stock won't bump up too much. But I almost, to me, it just doesn't make sense. I thought USC would be the perfect fit for him. Like if you want to go get developed by somebody, Lincoln Riley is going to give you all the opportunity in the world to be a good quarterback. Obviously, they lose out on Caleb Williams, and you stay on the West Coast. Like you were in Washington State, you get to go down to USC. It's warmer there. You got the pipeline to the NFL, and they just lost their 5-star kid to the portal. So like I thought that would have been the perfect fit, especially for a school that was in no rush to make a decision about who's going to be their quarterback next year.
So you mentioned USC, which is interesting to me, and I agree with you. I think that would have been a good spot. Like you said, you go to Southern Cal, go into the Big Ten, you're going to get a bunch of media exposure. You get to play in Southern California. I mean, it doesn't get much better.
plus
all
NIL.
Plus NIL. You give all the resources in the world. And the kid that everybody thought was going to kind of be the next one there, he's already in the portal out of there in Malachi. And, we talk about him in a second, because if this story is bewildering to you, that one to me is maybe even worse. I really, it's going to come out because it always does. But I don't know if he was walking in there and being like, hey, I want $500,000. I'm not even going to sit down and talk. Or, hey, I want to be guaranteed the starter spot. If not, I'm not coming here.
I get that.
If it wasn't one of those things, then if I'm him, if it wasn't one of those things, and coaches are like, hey, like, this is what we see, this is what we think, we need you to work on this, blah, blah, blah. And he got upset by that. If all the college coaches are looking at it that way, then what are the scouts going to say? I mean, if college coaches are like, hey, we're not handing you the keys to our program, you got to compete for it. We don't think you're quite ready to do this, this, and this. If that's what they're saying, then, I mean, he's like a 5th-round pick. And, I mean, that is not where you want to be in limbo as a college quarterback. So that is, I think I do. I think he was very smart into, putting his name in the portal first. And I think he was very dumb in waiting so long. I agree with both you guys. I think he kind of had the pick of the litter and kind of got a little too picky. And then other teams were like, well, all right, well, he's not, we can't wait for him with this guy out there. So we like him too. So we're taking him. And then all the good spots filled up. I also thought for a while, I really did think that, there was a shot he was going to go to Ohio State. And then that didn't even come to fruition at all. Because I thought that would be a really good fit.
I don't know why, but they didn't want him.
And again, all joking aside, well, I don't say all joking aside, but, that program historically is a very good evaluator of quarterbacks. So again, to me, if Ohio State's like, don't even bother coming, like, we're not interested, like, what are they all seeing, or what are a lot of these programs seeing and thinking that they're not interested in Cam Ward?
Yeah,
so,
I agree with that too. Alex, did Cam, because I thought Oregon could have been a good spot as well. Like when he first got into the portal, especially again, West Coast connections. You're familiar with the conference, the big teams that you play, UCLA, USC, like Washington, like those guys are going to the Big Ten with you. So did Cam ever have interest from Oregon?
So when he first entered the portal, it was rumored that they were going to kind of talk to him and go after him. He never got an official visit. I'm not sure if they asked him to or not, but he never accepted one. But he also, like you said, he was kind of going all over the country, for every corner, kind of seeing his options. I think he checked out Washington, Miami, Florida State. I'm not sure if he checked out any California schools, but he was kind of all over the place. He was really indecisive as far as which part of the country he wanted to be in even. I mean, the whole kind of process was just kind of like, honestly, it seemed like he was a 16-year-old kid trying to make a decision on his future, and he just didn't know what he wanted to do yet. I mean, he was kind of all over the place, changing his mind, flipping. I mean, he was just waiting for other people to make his decision for him. But he never came to Oregon. Oregon wanted to get that QB situation taken care of as soon as possible. And then I kind of knew the Ducks were going to land somebody in that first week to 2 weeks because they were not going to mess around and miss out on arm talent. And I'm glad that they didn't. But yeah, Cam Ward would have been a great fit in Oregon. I told you when he first entered the portal that he was on my list of guys I wanted to grab from the portal. And I thought that he was going to be the one that we actually did land ultimately. So I am pretty shocked by this. But then again, I'm also not shocked because, leading Washington State, he started out undefeated, and then he had a really rough patch there with the 6 straight losses. And that's where he had the majority of his turnovers in that stretch. So it doesn't surprise me. He had amazing wide receivers at Washington State, and he was able to, he still lost 7 games. So maybe, these bigger programs are like, you've had talent at Washington State this last year, not Ohio State, Marvin Harrison Jr. talent, but you had some talent out at the wide receiver position. I'm not sure if you can't do anything with that talent, what can you do with ours type thing. Like, I just don't think that coaches really liked him. I don't think Dan Lanning, after Dillon Gabriel entered the portal, I think it was kind of like all eyes went to him. Cam Ward was kind of more like a secondary thought, like a backup plan.
Yeah, so I mean that is I will be shocked if we hear his name on day one or day two. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, it'll be interesting once Monday, as soon as I mean that's pretty much what we go into. As soon as Monday night is over, kind of get the celebration for 2 days, and then it just turns into full who's declaring, who's going, who's coming back, and you start getting draft grades and everything else. So I would be very curious to see where Cam Ward falls on the quarterback list because it's going to be crowded this year. I mean, we know that for sure.
It'll definitely be crowded this year, but I almost also wonder, did he think about it as a numbers game? Like in the sense of, yeah, all these quarterbacks are coming out this year. I know you still have some tweeners like JJ still, undecided at this point. Like we think Quinn's going back to school, but I almost wonder, did he play it as like a numbers game? So you have for sure, Aller is probably going to be coming out next year. I know regardless of what you think about him, just a quarterback at a big time school. You're going to have, Quinn and, all these Shador. Like there's going to be quarterbacks next year that are also coming out. I wonder, did he think like, hey, this is probably where I stack up compared to these guys? Maybe I'm like the sixth quarterback in this year's draft. If I come out next year, I might be fifth. I might still stay at the sixth spot. Like, I just wonder what all went into that process.
I don't disagree with you, but I feel like he's still kind of in the same spot no matter what. Like for instance, like say like next week out of nowhere, Quinn's like, you know what, I'm going, and JJ decides he's not coming back. Now he went from sixth this year, now he's eighth. You know what I mean? And like you said, like next year, say what you want about Penn State, but I mean, there are going to be certain scouts that are going to love Drew Aller because they're going to be like, once we get him out of, away from James Franklin, we can actually coach him and make him a good quarterback because the kid's got the size, he has a cannon. Like, somebody will want to develop him. And you have, Shador and all those
even
guys.
Milroe, like, depending on what his season looks like I'll say I say that because going into this season, I don't remember people talking about Jaden Daniels being a first round quarterback. Everybody knew that he had the talent there, but him having the season that he did, winning the Heisman, he's going to be a top 10 pick in this year's upcoming draft. So like if Milroe goes out there, he has a Heisman campaign, there's going to be some teams that are like, hey, we're going to look at this kid. And all it takes is one team to be like, hey, we'll pull the trigger on this guy to be a first round pick. Like he could have a third round pick from everybody, similar to like I'll compare it to Jalen Hurts in the sense that people thought he was going into the league originally as like a gadget guy. And so when the Eagles pulled the trigger on him in the second round, kind of shocked some people. But all it takes is that one team to view you in a certain way to be the franchise guy.
It's going to be fun. I mean, and we're going to have plenty of time to discuss it in, obviously in upcoming shows. So, let's go to the guy that I brought up real quick. Mr. Malachi from USC. Rumor is now that Boise State is the favorite. Mm-hmm. Would anybody like to guess the last time Boise State had a 5-star quarterback prospect on their roster?
2002?
I don't know if
I'm not sure if you actually know the answer.
I'd probably say never. I go on the limb and say never.
Say never. But apparently that's where they're going. That's the rumor. That's where he's gonna commit to. He wants to play for a team that has a bunch of senior leadership coming back and has a chance to compete next year and make the playoff. Which, believe it or not, this will probably be next week's show, which will be fun. But we will probably pick our way too early 12-team college football playoff next week.
Absolutely,
which will be a lot of fun. There's a lot. There's a lot of people that think Boise State have a shot to make it next year. Out of the group of 5, they have a star running back. I think their whole offensive line is back. That they will be built for a nice 1-year run. That being said, I mean, man, this kid was the prize jewel of the class last year for Lincoln Riley. He was the number 1 kid in the class. I don't know. For me, this feels a little bit like the Dante Moore situation, but not with the same happy ending per se. I think, relax, pervert. it was.
It's a happy ending.
He said,
I think Dante Moore, realized maybe he didn't have the best attitude, or maybe he was just, maybe not quite coachable enough, but had the maturity to acknowledge that and say, hey, I'm going to go to another big program, with a guy that Dan Lanning, that he obviously feels comfortable with. He was, he was committed there before, and I'm going to sit for a year and really learn the position and be a better quarterback. I don't know. Here's the difference for me. Dante Moore went into a situation where you could argue he should have started. He was the best quarterback on that roster, and I still believe that. Malachi had to know going into this year he was not playing. He was not going to be the starting quarterback at USC with Caleb Williams there. So for me to look at it from an outsider's point of view, this is just my point of view. If you're that kid and you've built up that kind of attitude already, going into a situation where I'm pretty sure Lincoln Riley was pretty straightforward with them, like, hey, learn the offense, get ready. It's going to be your team next year. You're not playing this year with Caleb Williams there. And for there still to be enough friction there and, enough, ill will that he's like, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore, to transfer to Boise State. And again, I'm not taking anything away from Boise State, but you're talking about USC, which is a blue blood program, which is literally about to hand you the keys to the program. And now you're going to play in the Mountain West. That's a big fall from grace. That's a big change, no matter how you slice it. Cottrell, Alex, I don't know what to say. I really don't about this one.
I mean, the only thing I could think of is he's going there to, one, have the chance to play immediately. Two, I think kind of like you said earlier, Boise State is really primed to have a good 1 year run. And I do feel like maybe he sees this as an opportunity to jump on a team that has the chance of making an at-large bid into the college football playoff next year. Not staying with USC is kind of a head scratcher, especially because, like you said, like there's no way he thought he was coming in out of high school and taking the starting job from the projected number 1 overall pick for the NFL draft. There's no way he thought that, right? Lincoln Riley definitely laid out the thing like, hey, learn this year, next year, keys are yours. So my only thought process behind this would be that he thinks he can go there, start from day one, and he thinks that Boise State is capable of going to the college football playoff. I mean, that's really kind of what I'm thinking of. He may see USC as you're going to a new Big Ten conference. We may have some struggles the first couple of years. Boise State's not going anywhere. They've had success last season. They got good weapons. This may be he may see this as his best chance to get to the biggest stage in college football. Maybe it might be a backdoor entrance, but this looks like that might be his thought process. But that's only me thinking, kind of like trying to get in his head and see where he's at. That's where my thought process goes.
So for me, I think this is very cut and dry. I think the easiest situation to compare it to would be Arch Manning down in Texas. So at Texas, you had Quinn Ewers as your starting quarterback, and Malik Murphy had been the projected backup quarterback pretty much the entire season. At USC, it's a very similar situation. You talk about Caleb being the starter, and I think Malachi knew 100% he wasn't going to play a snap this year with Caleb being that guy, barring some crazy injury. Problem is that their backup quarterback is Miller Moss, and he hasn't gone anywhere in that program. I think that's really where the disconnect is with Malachi Nelson. Like, I don't think he felt like he had a chance to take the starting spot from him. And I think that's why Malachi ultimately hit the portal. Also, I've seen different things, different reports come from like USC's side of things. And they're saying that Malachi Nelson has struggled to read some defenses. So he has all the arm talent in the world, but Lincoln Riley is, offensive guru. Like, you have to understand what his offense does. Like, that's how all the guys that have come from his systems have that success. Like Jalen Hurts and, Baker, Kyler, like all these guys, you have to know what you're looking at. You have to know what your guys are running. And so I guess he's had some issues as a freshman. Most freshmen struggle, especially in a system that complex. But I think that's really why Malachi ultimately hit the portal. The part that I'm not surprised that he hit the portal. I'm surprised there wasn't more interest in him. So that also brings me to the fact, like, maybe this guy is I don't want to label him this because I don't know, but like maybe he's an issue in the locker room. Like maybe he's hard to work with. Like him being as highly touted as he was last year, like you said, Bill, number one player in the country, number one quarterback in the country, for Boise State and Cal and Tulane to be like the biggest schools that have interest in him, especially with so many schools losing quarterbacks, like that says something to me. Like Dante Moore, you saw Dante Moore not have the greatest season last year with UCLA. Thought it was good, but a team that highly coveted him the year before, they said, "Oh, you're back in the portal. We're going to try and get you again," and they did in Oregon. Like it's just weird to me that Malachi's not. He had no traction in this process.
But I feel like, and that's what I get back to with Dante. I feel like Dante took his medicine, and if anybody made themselves look better in this portal, in my opinion, it's him, because it was like, hey, I clearly wasn't the model teammate and the model, player for that coaching staff. I'm going to take my medicine, realize I need to fix things, work on me. I'm going to go to a huge program, sit there for a year, learn the offense, become a better teammate, ingrain myself with my teammates, with the kids I'm going to play with for 2 years after that, and make myself a better player. But I hate to say it. You want to know why this is all starting to happen? Because you got these kids coming out of high school, you're handing them bags of cash. Listen, if anybody's the number one recruit in the country, you're getting every coach in the country telling you, that, they're just blowing sunshine up your ass anyway. I'm fine with that. You're getting those kids to try to come to your program. But now on top of that, now you're handing them loads of money. And it's just like, okay, not only are you the number one guy in the program, but, here's $500,000. That's how great we think you are. I'm not saying the kids are even wrong at that point then for step on campus and maybe even, their heads be a little bit too big. It's natural. You can't show an 18-year-old kid that much money and tell him all those things. And listen, we were all 18. We all remember we were 18. When we were 20, we thought we knew everything in the world. You know what I mean? Now you're going to do that with, oh, hey, you're the best college football player in the country. Hey, you're going to Southern California. Hey, here's a bunch of money. You're going to be the face of this program the 3 years after Caleb Williams leaves. How do you expect an 18-year-old to react to that? You know what I mean? It's very rare that you get the kids to handle it correctly, or at least you have the kids after a year, like a Dante Moore, and be like, you know what? I need to change some things on my end to become a better football player, and I'm going to do that. I love Dante Moore for that. I love Dante Moore to have the maturity to come out and be like, you know what? I didn't do it the right way in UCLA. I want a fresh start. I'm going to go do it the right way with another guy that I feel comfortable with in Dan Lanning in a good program, and I'm going to do it the right way and show everybody that I matured. But at the same time, like, I can't blame this all on the kids, because what do you expect an 18-year-old to do? If I was 18 years old coming out of high school, getting recruited by all these baseball programs, and somebody was like, hey, here's a Lambo and a $500,000, and we're going to put your poster all over our baseball stadium. Like, how do you think you guys would react? I know what I was like when I was 18. I know how I would have been. There's no way in hell I'm walking into that locker room my freshman year not thinking I'm the shit. That, like, I'm going to take over this program. Like, what? Like, that is like the part that, like, aggravates me about all this. Like, I hate the NCAA. I'm on record with that. I hate them. I can't stand them. But that being said, they're kids. We are losing that point of view more and more and more, because we're treating it more and more like a business, and that's not what college football is supposed to be. I know there is the business side of it, and I'm not saying there's not a better way to take away from the kids that are generating the billions of dollars that they are, because they are. And it went on for far too long where a bunch of old white rich guys were making money hand over fist on all these kids. And that needs to change. I think everybody agrees with that. But at the same time, these are 18-year-old kids that you are taking away from their parents or who's ever raising them, because some of these kids come from very difficult family situations, and handing them the world, but then being like, hey, make sure you guys act right. Like, that's just not realistic. Am I wrong? Like, am I off base here? Like we need to take better care of these kids. Pay them, make sure they're set up, make sure that they're not broke when they're in college, because they are the kids that you're selling their jerseys. The reason people are buying these tickets to go to these games, why they're on ESPN, and ESPN pays $40 billion a year for college rights, and the Big Ten has $1 billion a year TV deal. Like, but you still got to remember they're kids. They're 18-year-old kids. Now they have a bunch of money, that have attitudes. You know, there's got to be something in between. Like, I don't know if I'm just crazy. I don't know what it is. I don't know. But I just, you know, I'm not necessarily sticking up for Malachi, but you're seeing it more and more. Like, it's becoming, it's not an epidemic, but like, you're seeing it more and more with situations that just don't seem to make sense. Like, Cottrell nailed it perfectly. Don't tell me the kid went from the number one recruit that USC, Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, and all these teams were fighting tooth and nail for, to now, just 12 months later, you're telling me his best offer is Boise State or Tulane. Like, that's a big disconnect for me. You know what I mean? Like I don't mean to be an idiot, but like, Michigan possibly needs a quarterback. Ohio State, you know, up until a couple of days ago, needed a quarterback. These guys were beating down the door to get them 12 months ago. And now they're both in situations where they possibly need a kid to step in and be the stud for the next 3 years, and neither one of them picked up the phone. That's crazy to me.
Shoot,
And
Tulane's
again,
off the board now anyway. They just got signed Ty Thompson. So,
correct. Yeah, great point. So, like, are we going to say it's all, you know, all Malachi? No, I'm sure some of it is definitely him and his attitude. Like Cottrell said, maybe his performance, you know, at practice wasn't great. Maybe he was lackadaisical at practice because he just thought the keys were getting handed to him next year anyway. But again, that's not an abnormal thing for an 18-year-old kid to think. Like, I don't know. I'm done ranting. We got like, I've said this before, dude, and I've been consistent with it since we started doing even wire to wire. They're kids. We have to take better care of the kids. And, you know, this isn't, you know, Malachi wasn't a 20 or 22-year-old kid now who's been in college for 4 years and was like, screw it, I'm still the best. I played like crap. I want to transfer. That's not what this is. This kid who was 18 got handed a bunch of money. You know, everybody, again, if you're that kid, everybody on campus knows who you are. Like, he probably had a really fun freshman year at USC. Let's just be honest. But he's a kid. We have to take better care of the kids. But that being said, let's switch gears here to go to Ohio State. They finally get their quarterback. If that's what you want to believe, Cottrell's going to spend the next 5 minutes telling you this is a great signing. I'm not saying it's a bad signing. I'm just not. I will say this, and then I'll let Cottrell go. If I was an Ohio State fan, which I'm clearly not, I would not be over the moon about this or spinning it. And Cottrell's not doing this, so I don't want to lump him in with these people. There's a lot of people on Twitter. There's a lot of people all over the boards that are over the moon with this signing. And you could spin it however you want to spin it. And Cottrell's going to do it in a minute. I don't think – I'll say this, and then I'm really going to shut up. I don't think they are in a significantly different or better spot than they were last year with Kyle McCord. And I'm done. Cottrell, I will let you go. Alex, when he is done, please jump in because I think you feel more like I do on this one. But I'm going to let the man have the floor. It is his program and see what he says.
First things first, I've never been a huge Will Howard guy. Like, I'm very about the signing. I will say, I said 2 weeks ago when Will Howard first hopped in the portal, before, actually it was during the Big 12 championship game, the only two quarterbacks that I wanted from the portal were Will Howard or Arch Manning. Dante Moore was another one, but that he ended up hopping in the portal after. Another guy that I would have wanted to come to the program. But like, of the quarterbacks that were out there, I would have been okay with like just sticking it out, having the battle between Devin and Lincoln and Aaron next year and figuring it out. Will Howard he brings a different dynamic to Ohio State in the sense of him being a dual threat quarterback. Like now, next year, you will have some more design quarterback runs, which had been a staple in, Ohio State's offense before. Obviously, CJ didn't run the ball a ton, but like Justin Fields and like that's usually when you see Ohio State have their most success, when they have a quarterback that can run and also pass the football. Will Howard, you know what you're going to get with him. I hate that a lot of Ohio State fans are comparing him to Josh Allen just because he's big and he can run the football. Like, it's just dumb.
I didn't even see that one. Good Lord.
But in the college sense, he has the big arm, he can run the football, and he's going to turn the ball over. So if you want to say it because of that, then I'm okay with that, because that is what you're going to get with Will Howard. He's going to air the ball out. He's going to run the football. He's going to turn the ball over. So if you're saying that that's Josh Allen, then hey, I'm okay with it in that sense. This isn't a move that I think changes like the history of Ohio State or anything like that. But I do think it is an upgrade from what Kyle McCord is, because, I thought we were very limited with what we could do with McCord. There was never going to be a game where McCord could throw for 350 yards and like he be the sole reason why we won the football game. Like, I just never had that feeling with him. I think Will can air it out. He's going to have the best receiving core that he's ever had in his career. And I think Will Howard is a better option than what we currently had on the roster.
Undertaker, let's go.
I mean, we were talking about
bury this take. Bury it.
When we Barry, I'm gonna mess it up somehow. Just wait. We were talking. I was scrolling through. We text so much I couldn't find it. I remember when Will Howard first entered the transfer portal. I got his name mixed up with somebody else, and you were like, "Oh, good. Will Howard is yes."
Will
I said
Rogers.
Will Rogers. Yes. You're like, Will Howard is terrible. I was looking for the text message, couldn't find it. That's okay. I wish I had it. I put it up as a screenshot for everyone in Buckeye Nation to see.
Oh boy.
But I couldn't find it.
Alex
So,
will go digging.
I have the receipts here. I have the receipts. What do you need to know?
But here's what I'm saying. Will Howard, here's where you're going to struggle next year with Will Howard is he's going to throw 10 interceptions.
For sure.
Freshman year, 10 interceptions. This last year, 10 interceptions. He hasn't ran the ball too much at Kansas State, especially this last year. With Avery Johnson, they kind of used him as a Wildcat situation. I had Avery Johnson in my Heisman list for next year. So I think Will Howard transferring out, he kind of saw the writing on the wall. And with Avery Johnson taking over. But I don't know. Like I said, has Egbuka announced that he's coming back next year yet? Or is he still not said anything?
He hasn't officially announced yet. Everyone thinks he's coming back just based on where he's at and him playing in the bowl game and just what he's told people behind the scenes. Okay,
perfect. Well, so here's the one thing where we will see a different side of Will Howard this year than we have seen of him in the past. And this should be something that excites Cottrell going into next year. He's obviously got great arm strength, arguably better than Kyle McCord. He's got better mobility. Here's the other thing. This last season at Kansas State, he was constantly under pressure. He got sacked 16 times this season, which comparatively other quarterbacks got hit a lot more. But he's used to being sacked between 2 and 5 times per season. This last season, he got hit a lot. So when he goes to Ohio State, he's going to be able to stay upright. He's going to be protected. Ohio State does recruiting in the trenches very well. I can't argue with that, as does Michigan. A lot of Big Ten teams really strive for success in the trenches recruiting, and they do a great job. So it'll be nice to see Will Howard be able to actually stay upright and see what he can do with some Ohio State caliber weapons versus the Kansas State weapons he's had. So it'll be nice to see what he's able to do this year. I'm not, completely sold that he's going to be able to take them to a national championship, but I think he is a good intermediate quarterback while they wait for what's his face from next year. Who's coming in this year? What's his name?
Aaron Nolan.
Aaron Nolan, thank you.
Nolan.
He's got a great name for football, but I think it's a great bridge quarterback to kind of get him the reins. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Aaron Nolan, if Will Howard doesn't come out on fire this year, we may be seeing a freshman quarterback at Ohio State. What do you think?
I'll tell you why that won't happen.
Okay.
Ryan Day does not have the stones to throw a freshman quarterback out there on the field.
You don't think so?
He ain't wrong.
You don't think with his job on the line, you don't think that he might give it a chance? If
He'll
they
throw
start, if they lose the game early,
he'll throw the 5-star kid like Devin Brown. It doesn't look like he's going anywhere. He said he embraces competition and he's ready to fight against anybody for the job. So he'll throw Devin Brown out there before he throws Air out there. He will not let the ship sink with a freshman quarterback, even if that was their best option. Like, even if Air had the most talent, he's not throwing a true freshman out there on the field, like with his job on the line. Like, just not what Ryan Day's not built for that kind of risk. I'll say that.
I mean, I'd rather lose my job trusting my 5-star kid than trusting Will Howard, but that's just me.
I mean, I think Devin Brown better learn how to read a little bit better, because I think the writing is on the wall. He went in that bowl game and didn't look good, and they were probably walking back to the locker room and they were like, "Somebody better start calling Will Howard."
He didn't even have a chance to look good in that game. I mean, I get it. He didn't look great those couple series, but like, he was hurt before he even had a chance to get anything going.
You're not wrong. And I'm kidding around and joking, but that being said, Will Howard's going to be the starting quarterback week 1 at Ohio State. Let's just be honest about it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But a couple other names.
I was gonna say I had something to throw out there too.
Well, we got to talk about.
We're getting close on time, but I know that Quinshon Judkins, since we're still talking about Ohio State, Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss did enter the transfer portal, which blew my mind. Reading some reports, it did say that they had spent all of their NIL money, and he wanted a chance to make that bag before he left college. Have you guys heard similar situations? Cottrell, you were saying he's tied to Ohio State with a previous teammate. What do you guys hear on your fronts?
I mean, it's
there's like 6 schools that are interested in him right now. Ohio State has been recruiting hard on him. Obviously, he's going to wait to see what Travion does before he even thinks or gives Ohio State any type of consideration. Like, he's not going anywhere in the country to be a running back by committee. So if your team has a starting running back from last year, you can pretty much rule them out. Even if you think Judkins is better than what your starter was last year, he's not going to a team where he has to split carries after the season that he had last year. So,
nope.
So I'm gonna interrupt you real quick. I actually read a report that says he might be looking to go somewhere to have a running back by committee, because he feels like he has proven himself already, and he's ran the ball more than any other running back in the country by far over the last 2 seasons. And supposedly he's looking for a little bit of reprieve to save himself for that next level.
I think that would make sense. I think that would make sense in theory, but I don't think any running back who is good and has the talent that he does wants to be off the field, especially if he's going to a team that has a chance to win a national championship. Like, if he goes, go ahead, Bill.
No, go ahead. I'm going to piggyback on what you said.
If he goes to a team like Ohio State or LSU or, just one of these schools that have national championship hopes and aspirations for next year, he's going to want to be on the field and contribute as much as possible to help his team get there. Like, I just think that's the kind of guy that he is.
And the reason I agree with that 100% is also you have to look at the way the NFL values running backs now. If you're in the year before you become draft eligible is not the year you want to take off and be like, all right, like, I'll cut my carries in half and, and do all that. No, like, it's been shown too much now in the last couple of years. You have one shot to get drafted and make one good contract in the NFL. You need to put numbers up.
Yep.
You need to be high on everybody's board. You need to show out. There is no way I think he's going anywhere where he's taking carries out of his hands. I think the funny thing is the top 3 schools that I've seen for him, he's going to have to kind of play a waiting game on all 3 of them. He's an Alabama kid. He's from Alabama. So, I mean, obviously they're going to be in the mix. They're a little unsettled, I think, at that position, depending on what, McClendon does. But obviously they got those 2 freshmen too that you saw in the Michigan game that are more than talented enough. So I don't know if he goes there. And Nick Saban, if he doesn't have like the bona fide stud, like the King Henry or, Mark Henry when he was there, if he doesn't have that standout guy, he's always kind of a guy by committee anyway. So I don't know if that situation fits. I hate to say, I really do think this comes down to Michigan and Ohio State, because I think he's going to wait to see if Travion leaves, and I think the other shoe to fall is going to be what Donovan Edwards does. Because because obviously if both those guys come back, they are definitely RB1 by a mile on both rosters. They are going to be the bell cow backs. And if either one of them leaves, then RB1 is wide open. Obviously, both schools, I know we have depth-wise, and I know Ohio State does too.
Not as much.
Yeah, well, it's true because you guys had guys in the portal.
Yep.
But that RB1 situation becomes wide open to be able to step in for one season and be, you know, a great running back on teams that both run the ball. I mean, Michigan runs the ball a little bit more than Ohio State, but on teams that emphasize the runs, on teams that notoriously recruit very, very well in the offensive line. So I think those are the top three teams. After that, I don't know. I think he could end up going somewhere, maybe a little bit off the board, depending on what happens. But yeah, I think he looked at it, the situation that, and again, this is the person I mentioned earlier in the show about not being able to trust him as far as I could throw him. The stuff that's leaking out to other parts of the media, I know is coming from Lane Kiffin saying he wasn't a great teammate, he wasn't this, he wasn't that. This is typical, you know, you can't blame Lane Kiffin, but they went out and spent all this money, you know, to get Nolan and all these guys to come in on this transfer class, which is nuts. I give them credit, they got them all. But you kind of forgot about all the guys that, you know, made you a 10-win team or 11-win team this year and got you there. And when you do that, sometimes, you know, guys feel taken advantage of. And I truly believe they have no NIL money left. And I think that's why he's leaving. I think he's going to show that he can go to another big program like Ohio State or like Michigan, put up crazy numbers, get paid, and still get drafted. So I don't really know a lot about this kid. So, you know, I could be wrong. Lane Kiffin could be right. With his track record of the way he kind of handles kids and talks to kids this year. Not that he was necessarily wrong with the lineman, but, you know, it's Lane Kiffin. I just don't trust him. I think a lot of people don't. I give this kid credit for kind of betting on himself. I do. To kind of be like, you know what? This isn't an Ole Miss thing. I'm talented. I can go make a name for myself at Michigan, Ohio State, Bama, LSU, somewhere else. Put up big numbers and get drafted and get what I think I deserve. So to some degree, some degree, you have to give the kid credit for betting on himself because he is leaving a very, very, very good football team that is most likely going to make the college football playoff next year.
Alex, I was going to ask you, was there anybody else like name-wise that you wanted to throw out there from the portal? Because I had a couple just to.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ones that really surprised me was KJ Jefferson transferring to UCF. It's a situation where I don't see it as a step up or an improvement on his team standing as far as Arkansas, UCF going into next year. UCF does not have as much talent. Not that they were screaming with talent this year, but they had some chances to actually able to compete in their new conference. I don't think next year they're in that same type of situation. So KJ Jefferson going to UCF surprised me. The QB that I'm excited to see where he goes is Caden Salter from Liberty.
He withdrew from the portal.
Oh, did he? Did he withdraw from the portal? I did not see that yesterday. Okay, cool.
Yesterday afternoon.
That's why I missed it. Then never mind then, because I was excited to see where he was going to go if he ended up staying in the portal, over 1,000 yards rushing. I figured he might have been a good replacement at LSU. I know they got somebody in the waiting, but it would have been nice to see another year of Jaden Daniels type athleticism at LSU. But never mind, because that is no longer an issue. So no, I'm happy with who we talked about. Cottrell, who you got?
And then with KJ Jefferson, the move may not seem like it makes sense. May seem like he's taking a step back. But the other thing too, I think he trusts Gus Malzahn, and Gus Malzahn was at Auburn. Believe he tried to recruit KJ Jefferson when he was coming out of high school. So they have that connection already. And so I think, with Arkansas making all the changes that they have with their offensive coaching staff, maybe he just wanted a fresh start, going to someone that he felt like he could trust and, get a good final year before he ultimately tries to go and make an NFL roster next year. That's kind of my thoughts with KJ. Two people that I definitely wanted to hit on: Julian Fleming going to Penn State, former 5-star kid. I think that's going to be a big pickup for them. And then there was one other. Who was the other kid that just hit the portal?
Baby Tua just hit the portal yesterday.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's who it
that's
was.
it.
I think he's going to end up going to Miami, stay down there with his brother. Miami's been waiting on a quarterback to ultimately fall to them. They probably wanted Cam Ward to ultimately slide there. I think they're going to throw a large amount of money out there for him. And for him to live the life down there with his brother, I think it makes a ton of sense. He's going to be able to air the ball out there and, put up enough numbers to get drafted next year.
I thought it was crazy. I saw a lot of people when it was declared, people were like, I have no idea where he's going to go. It's like so late in the portal. I was like, this is the easiest one in the world. Like,
There's only one spot.
Yeah, Cam Ward declared, so Miami has no quarterback. His brother is literally the quarterback for the professional team in the city. He's going to go
in the
live
same
with
stadium.
him. Yeah, literally the same stadium. I was like, this isn't hard. If he doesn't end up in Miami, I'd be shocked. Shocked that he's not in Miami. But anybody else you guys want to talk about, or you want to move on? We're down the home stretch here.
No, I think that's everybody I had, at least for this week.
All right, well,
still a couple dominoes to fall. Like Ollie Gordon is one of them that still going to be a
Gordon,
big one.
I think he's in the same boat as Bumpkins. I think he's got to wait. I think till the end and really see where, who is definitely coming back, leaving, and then I think after the national championship, the week of, I think late next week we know where both those guys are going. I think by the time we come back on air, both those guys are committed.
It's crazy that he's transferring Ollie Gordon because obviously the quarterback is coming back for a 7th year, which is absolutely crazy. But they're returning, 17 starters from a Big 12 championship. Obviously they lost, but a Big 12 championship caliber team. So, that's a lot of weapons returning for Oklahoma State. I'm surprised Ollie Gordon is leaving. Again, with Quinshon Judkins, I was surprised that's happening because for me, Ole Miss is probably one of the top 5 teams next year with him as their running back. So maybe there's an NIL money situation there for us as well. But Ollie Gordon, honestly, is kind of up in my brain as far as it's a very interesting move.
And then the last one that
the Big 12.
The last one that I just wanted to slide in that is a commitment. Damani Jackson going from USC to Alabama is going to be huge. I think that's a great move for him. And especially with Kool-Aid leaving next year, that's a huge get for Bama, getting another guy proven in the secondary.
I know he's crystal ball. Did he actually sign?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's committed.
I didn't think that he committed yet. It's going to be a violation, but neither here nor there. We'll talk about that later. All right, let's go. Let's do video game real quick, and then we'll go FCS, and then we'll finish with the national championship game. Alex, you've been very, very, very excited and outspoken about this, so I will let you start this.
Yes, my friend. Monday. We are going to be they'll be announcing some more information regarding the NCAA 2024 video game. It's rumored that they're going to be announcing who the cover athlete is. So we just want to take a couple minutes here to throw out who we think deserves or who we believe is going to be on the cover of the NCAA 24 football game. It's this game. I'm very excited to come back. How long has it been gone? It's been off the market for 9 years, 10 years?
11, technically.
11.
It'll be 11 before it comes out. Yeah.
Okay, so 11 years it's been off the market. I got a lot of core memories.
14 came out in 13.
Okay. Right. Fine. Okay.
So I have a lot of core memories tied to this game as a childhood, and a lot of people who love college football have also played this game. So we're going to talk for a couple minutes here on who we think is going to be on the cover. We're going to choose a current player and a past player because it is rumored that they are choosing between the two. We're not sure which one it is. I'll go first with my past player. It's between two people. One is going to be Jaden Daniels. Obviously, he just won the Heisman Trophy. Him being on the cover of the college football video game would make the most sense. The other past player that I believe has a chance to go on there, as he kind of, you know exactly what I'm going to say. My man, Bo Nix, deserves to be on the cover of the NCAA.
Mute him.
I was waiting on it.
Him.
Hey, he is actually a finalist. He is in betting odds. He is like the 5th best odds to be on the cover. Just saying. And once I saw that, I was instantly on the Bo Nix train. But if they decide to go current players, and Quinn Ewers does not go to the NFL, I do believe that Quinn Ewers would be the present player that ends up on the cover of NCAA 24. with his name recognition, school, and talent, and being a Heisman frontrunner for next year already. I think he'd be a solid choice to be on the cover. Cottrell, what do you think? We'll leave Bill for last since he's given attitude over there.
So I think mine, I'm not going off of anything crazy here. I think they should go with guys who are popular, like guys who everybody knows. And those two options for me, if you want to go with past player, Caleb Williams, like I think that's like the easy consent choice. Guy won the Heisman a couple years ago. He's going to be the first pick in the draft. Like I think that's just a foregone conclusion at this point. I think you could easily throw him on the cover. And if you're going with guys that are coming back, I got to think about the guy who's making the most money in NIL next year, and that's Shedeur Sanders. Like thinking about a black and gold cover with Colorado, stadium in the background. Like I could see Shedeur, flexing the watch or, holding the football. Like I just think those guys having the brand recognition that they already have, it being the first year back, I think you go big or go home and get one of the biggest names in college football in years prior, or the guy who's going to have college football in a chokehold next year for a team that only won 4 games last year in Shedeur Sanders.
So both you guys have named, guys that I think are possible for this, for upcoming years. I think Shedeur Sanders is absolutely on the top of that list, probably. And I also think, if you're going with guys that we're saying past guys, I hate to say it, I think Penix Jr. is in that discussion. And I also think, I think you could possibly see, somebody like Blake Corum or somebody like that, eke in. I mean, the last cover athlete was Denard Robinson from Michigan. So I don't know if they'll go back to back, but
he was fun though. Denard was fun.
He was fun. Denard, he was crazy.
Blake is good. Blake's not fun.
I get it, but
it's all business.
All business. Business ethics. But you have I think Quinn Ewers makes a lot of sense too. I really do. I think Texas is a huge brand. I think the other guy that nobody mentioned that I think was probably a big candidate as well was Jalen Milroe. But I don't again, they haven't printed anything yet. So, I mean, I think a lot of this stuff was probably decided, final votes and everything were done this weekend. And I agree with Justin Lauder. I wish they would do kind of 4 or 5 different covers for this and you could decide who you wanted to buy. Yep. That would be fun. I don't think they're going to do it, but I would be very curious. The part of me almost hopes they throw it back big time and they put Barry Sanders on the cover or something.
Archie Griffin.
Or something like that. That would be fun to me to keep it neutral. But I don't know. I mean, some athletes going to go on there and some athletes going to get paid for it. So we'll see who it is.
The one reason why I didn't pick guys like Quinn or even JJ, I just think with them not knowing what their futures are going to be, I don't know what direction they want to go. If they want to go past players all the time, they want to go players that are coming back to school. I just think with those guys that are kind of in limbo, I just put them all in the box and threw them out. So I didn't even think about Quinn or guys that haven't declared yet. I know we expect Marvin Harrison Jr. to declare, didn't throw him in that mix. Anybody who hasn't declared officially yet, I haven't. I just took their names and threw them all out.
Don't disagree. So that will be. I think they're doing halftime. I think Monday night.
Sometime
Monday night.
Something like that. So look forward to that. Look for the commercial. I mean, it could just be a commercial where they reveal it too, during the game. I'm sure it'll get brought up on the broadcast because it's a big deal. But let's switch gears real quick. We got a couple minutes left here, and we still got to preview the championship game. So let's go to the FCS championship game, which can be played Sunday down at Frisco, Texas, at Toyota Stadium.
Yep.
You have the 13-1 Montana Grizzlies, known as the Grizz, versus the 14-0 juggernaut South Dakota State, and they have one of the best mascots in college football, the Jackrabbits. I love it. I like these helmets. These
An
aren't the
angry
normal
looking
ones.
jackrabbit.
Yeah, it's an angry little rabbit. It'll bite your balls off or something. But FCS 1A national championship. Both these
Double A.
teams are very good. Double, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's just. I wish they would just go back to 1AA like it used to be, but now it's FCS, whatever the hell it is. But this is kind of a game between contrasting styles, if we're being honest. South Dakota State, like I said, is the juggernaut offensively. They hung 59 on somebody last week.
Albany.
Yeah, 59-0, just destroyed them. Great offensive team. They're pretty stout defense as well. The Grizz are kind of more of a traditional, kind of run the ball, play really, really, really good defense, and win games that way. I have a clear pick on this, but, I'll let you guys go first, and then, then I'll go last. So give me who you think wins, who raises the trophy, and give me a score.
For me, this is easy. I think it is very easy. Montana, they've had a great season. They're 13-1. The last two games have both been nail biters. Went to overtime. I actually saw both of the the fourth quarter,
double overtime,
and overtime in their games. So it's definitely been a great season for Montana. This South Dakota State team is a team of, it almost feels like a team of destiny. So they're the returning FCS champs. They won the championship last year. This team is senior led. Like pretty much everybody on their team is fifth year seniors or, true seniors this year. So they have all the experience in the world. But the one position where they're not senior led is at quarterback. Mark Gronowski, he's been their guy the past couple seasons, and I think they are going to absolutely roll in this game. South Dakota State hasn't played a close game in recent history here. It's been over a month. They had a tight game. I think that trend continues here. I got South Dakota State winning big in this one. I got it being 34-13 in a blowout, but South Dakota State ultimately capturing their second national championship in a row.
Alex.
All right. Yeah, I mean, the Grizz haven't played a national championship since 2009. South Dakota State obviously won it last year. The Grizzlies, on the other hand, offense has been looking fantastic, scoring 30-plus points in the last two playoff games. Just like Cottrell said, both of them overtime thrillers. Bill, you kind of said how good the Grizzlies defense have been this year. Well, I'll tell you one thing. The Grizzlies defense has not been good as of lately, giving up 29 points, 28 points, and then 19 points to a really poor Delaware team. Yes, it was the FCS championship second round, but Delaware was a team I think really kind of snuck in there for me, and in my opinion, as far as talent and caliber. Montana's been playing great. I have a lot of fans coming into my work of Montana. Have kids that play for the Grizz are just thankful to be in this situation. Even the parents are talking about how South Dakota State's going to kind of run all over them, but that they're happy to be in the situation. I don't think this game's close. They've won, 28 straight wins. They're basically the Georgia of their division, and they're going to run over this game. I'm thinking it's like a 42-14 game. It's probably over by halftime.
Yikes. All right. Well, that being said, though, I agree with both gentlemen. South Dakota State, this team is loaded. I mentioned it earlier. Cottrell already brought up Mark Gronowski, their quarterback, 28 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Isaiah Davis, there were 1,500 yards for the year. He's averaging 7 yards a carry, kick and scoot, man. Grizzlies, I think it's one of those situations where they made a great run to get here. Cottrell mentioned it. They went overtime 2 games ago. And then last week, double overtime to win to get here. Not that you ever want to say, hey, congrats, you made it, enjoy the ride. But I think that's kind of what this is going to be. South Dakota State, the current just class they have in there right now, they're just killing people. Like I said, they won 59-0 last week. Closest game they had, believe it or not, was against Villanova. They won 23-12, and that game was actually in limbo late in the fourth quarter. Villanova actually had a shot to go up late in that game, and they a turnover, very costly at the end. Alex, I love the Delaware hate, just because simply they try to steal our uniforms and their helmets. So screw Delaware. But I agree with both these guys. be a fun game to watch on Sunday if you want to watch a college football game. There will be a lot of scoring, but it's going to be mostly from the South Dakota side. I think the Jackrabbits hoist the trophy again, and I'll go 40-17 South Dakota State.
Bill, just saying, Delaware College was actually founded before Michigan, so technically Michigan stole Delaware's jerseys. But
Incorrect, sir. Incorrect. Look who came up with the winged helmet. It was Michigan, way before Delaware even had a football team. So Google that.
I will Google it when we're done on the show.
Speaking of winged helmets, we're finally here.
Winged helmet. We are here. The national championship football game Monday night. Houston, Texas, the number 1 seeded Michigan Wolverines versus number 2 seeded from the Pac-12. Finally, someone from the Pac-12 stepped up. Washington Huskies.
They're not even the Pac-12 anymore. We're claiming them. This is an all Big Ten national championship.
Are we just taking them? All right.
Yeah, we're taking them now.
All right. I mean, fine with that too.
Alex, I don't want to hear nothing from you either because you're one of us now, buddy.
Alex,
we're still in Pac-12 play.
For that reason, I will let Alex lead it off as this will be his swan song Pac-12 pick, as they will be no more come next year. We got schedules here. We got all kinds of stats. Alex did a great job here for these slides. So Alex, break it down. Tell me what you're thinking. Give me your score. We'll go to Cottrell, and then I'll finish because everybody knows who I'm picking. So.
Yeah, no, I know. We all know you're picking Washington, so we'll get to that here in a little bit.
Okay, Oregon.
But no, I mean, here we put the schedule side by side. As you can see, Washington and Michigan were both really tested in the second half of the year. Washington playing 5 ranked opponents in their last 6 games, and then the non-ranked opponent being Washington State, which obviously is a rivalry game. Anything can happen. Michigan closing out the schedule very similarly with 4 out of 5 ranked opponents. Maryland really fought them tooth and nail with a tough Tagovailoa at QB in that game. Obviously, both these teams are really coming into this game with different kind of modes of winning their games. Michigan's going to stop you and suffocate you with their astonishing defense, where Washington's going to kind of throw the ball to death and score and run up that score until you can't keep up with them anymore. If you look at the quarterback comparisons, we can kind of see the differences in the playing styles. Washington has a really high air raid offense. Michael Penix Jr., 4,600 passing yards. J.J. McCarthy, just under 3,000. But he has nothing to slouch about. He made some great throws against Alabama last week, showing what he's capable of. Michigan's just chosen to have more of a ground attack this year, which is nothing wrong with that. Michael Penix Jr. has 9 interceptions this year. J.J. McCarthy has done a fantastic job of kind of controlling the ball, not forcing turnovers, not putting Michigan in bad situations this season. I do anticipate that this game coming up, we're probably going to have maybe 1 turnover that's going to really kind of tell the difference in this game. But I think both teams are going to be able to take care of the ball really well. What do you guys think about this QB comparison looking at the numbers?
I mean, I think that the numbers is glaring as they are in Penix Jr.'s favor. I don't know if they tell the full story just because, as much as I hate Michigan, I've been a JJ fan, since he was in high school. Like, I see the talent that's there. I tell people that I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. I just think that the way Michigan runs their offense, they just don't need him to necessarily do too much. So, obviously Penix Jr., he's a guy that it seems like the big games happen, all his nerves go out the window. He's ready to go from snap 1. He'll throw the ball to anybody, anywhere on the field. Love that about him. It's got him in trouble a couple of times. You see the 9 interceptions there. But Michael Penix Jr., they clearly want the ball to be in his hands. They feel like that's going to be their method of victory. But you look at JJ's numbers and, you see that they are a little bit down. I will tell you this. If Michigan gets into a spot where, and I don't think this is going to happen, but if they get into a spot where they have to put the ball in JJ's hands and he needs to air it out, he is way more than capable of doing so. And he can kill you with his arm, if you let him.
I'm not going to disagree with any of that. I think JJ is going to be the better pro by a mile. You saw a couple of slow-mo replays from the Alabama game. There's the one that everybody keeps showing, the tight end coming over the middle, where he literally threw the perfect football Alabama's kid has great coverage, and he fits in there by like an inch. JJ's got a great arm, throws a really, really nice ball. Michael Penix Jr. is a stud. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from him, but again, these numbers are a little misleading simply because Michigan doesn't throw the ball anywhere near as much as Washington. The first 7 games of the year, JJ didn't even play in the fourth quarter. Then you have the Penn State game where they didn't throw the ball once in the second half. So if Michigan wanted to play football like Washington, and I'm not saying one's right or one's wrong, but if Michigan had the same kind of offense as Washington did, JJ's numbers would be right there, if not probably more, in my opinion.
All right. Well, let's take a look at the weapons that these guys have. All right. It is insane, though, the amount of rushing touchdowns that Blake Corum has this season. I mean, comparatively, he's just absolutely running. Is he the leading touchdown scorer by running back this season in NCAA?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's well, now he is, yes, but before it was your guy from Missouri, Cody Schrader.
Okay. Yeah, we got some great weapons here. Rome Odunze, 1,500 receiving yards, and not even listed on here. Washington has a second receiver that absolutely puts up numbers. They both had over 100 yards receiving last week in Jaden Polk. Jalen Polk. Sorry, I said Jaden. Jalen Polk last week had 122 yards on 5 receptions. So really, he's got 2 elite weapons on the outside on both sides. And I'm excited to see what Michigan's going to kind of throw out them to kind of limit that. And the other thing that's kind of going to really be a true factor in this game is if running back Dylan Johnson, what percentage of health he's going to be at going into this game. The last about 2 months of the season, Kalen DeBoer said that he's been kind of struggling with what is either an ankle or a knee injury that's been kind of lingering around. And he did rehurt it last. Thank you. He did rehurt it last week against Texas on that last on their last offensive play before they punted back to Texas. He is expected to play Monday. Obviously, 1,100 yards rushing. They really don't have a secondary running back behind him that's honestly a threat. So if he can't go, that's going to turn Washington one-dimensional, and that is exactly what Michigan wants, not what Washington wants. What do you guys think, Bill? Give us a little bit of rundown on the offensive players for Michigan for this game.
Obviously, I think this is kind of lopsided in both ways. If you're being honest, I think Dylan Johnson's numbers are great. You see Blake Corum's there. He actually has less yardage, but at the same time, you see the disparity in touchdowns. But you're also not factoring in Donovan Edwards' numbers behind that as well. So it's really like 32 touchdowns and close to 1,800 yards between the two of them. Because they do flip flop them both in and out of in and out of the game. That being said, I talked about Dylan Johnson, at nauseum last week, how important I thought he was going to be in the Texas game. I think the kid's a stud. He's a bigger kid. He's hard to bring down. I will say this: I'm not saying the kid's not going to play Monday. I think Kellen DeBoer is a little bit of gamesmanship here. Because they really don't have anybody behind him, and he doesn't want Michigan to know, what the game plan for. I think him being anywhere close to 100% is far-fetched if you're a Washington fan. Being a little bit banged up and working on something that you've been dealing with all year is a little bit of a far cry from getting carted off the field. He was in a lot of pain. I find it very hard to believe he's going from getting carted off, not being able to walk, to playing Monday night in any kind of great capacity. I hope the kid can play. Again, I'm a fan of him. That being said, I think it's Kellen DeBoer just kind of keeping things a little close to the vest, as he should. I think the other matchups are interesting. I think Washington's secondary is nowhere near as good as Alabama's. So I do think Cornelius Johnson and Roman Wilson are going to be able to get a little bit of separation, and JD's going to have better windows to throw the ball. The most interesting matchups of the night by far, though, in my opinion, are Odunze versus Will Johnson, who has been great all year against everybody. Alabama just was like, we're just not throwing the ball to that side of the field. Ohio State went at him a couple times, but that was also because they, Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously. And he held him to one catch before he got hurt. Odunze versus Will Johnson, and then obviously Polk versus Mike Wallace on the other side. is going to, probably determine a big factor of what happens in this football game. They're going to play man. Rod Moore, like I said, usually plays on the same side as Will Johnson. I actually think they might change that and give them a different look this week. I think Rod Moore, who's a great safety, he's the one who had the interception to end the Michigan-Ohio State game. I think they might put him over Mike Wallace to really take away Polk and just kind of, listen, I mean, Will Johnson is not going to hold Odunze to 0 catches. So let's see a bunch of stupid Michigan fans saying stuff like that. That's just not going to happen. But I think if you get, you say give Odunze 7 and 70 with no touchdowns and then really concentrate on helping Mike Wallace over the top with Polk, if that's what they do, then I think Washington's in a lot of trouble. Odunze, I think, is a stud. I think he's a top 15, top 20 pick in the draft. Will Johnson's just really freaking good too, though. That's just going to be a fun matchup to watch. If you're a football fan, just watch it. You're going to watch 2 elite guys go at each other all night, so that's going to be fun. But we'll get into a little bit more of this stuff, in regards. But both teams have weapons. Michigan obviously, has the tight ends as well as in Colston Loveland, who is a huge weapon as well. So he factors into the passing game big time for Michigan. But it's going to be a bunch of fun matchups, man. I mean, there is no lack of star power on either one of these teams at the skill positions. That's why I think it's going to be a great game.
I think the one thing, too, that I definitely want to add is that with Dillon Johnson, I do think, obviously, he is going to be somewhat hampered by the injury. I do think, though, you can give him a cortisone shot and you could spat him up, tape the ankle as much as you can. And I know that's not going to, magically heal him and get him to 100%, but I do think he can be effective in this game. I think you can get him up to 70%. And I think they carted him off last week just because they didn't know how bad it was. Like, he had the MRI, he had the x-rays, and everything came back negative. So it's really just going to be a pain tolerance thing for him. And so I do think, you can shoot him up and spat him, and he can play and be somewhat effective. The issue that you're going to run into is that you just don't want it to get re-aggravated. And so it just really depends on how much, Michigan's going to dominate the trenches there. I mean, Dillon Johnson only had 49 yards last week running against that Texas defensive line, which is great. Michigan's going to have the same kind of success up front as well. So you just really got to hope that he doesn't get twisted up in there. And then I do think what will be the interesting thing, you talk about Odunze versus Will Johnson. I think the matchups in total, it's going to come down to how much Michigan runs their man coverage and if they get out of that. Like, I think Washington has the talent to get some big plays, especially if they have the one-on-one matchups with some of those guys in the Michigan secondary. It's just going to be what adjustments does Michigan make and how much success do they have getting after the quarterback. Last week, they had 7 sacks on Jalen Milroe. This Washington team, you talk about, teams having great O-lines. This Washington offensive line won the Joe Moore Award this year. Like, they have, by all accounts, the best offensive line in all of college football this year. So I think that is going to be my biggest takeaway from it. They did a great job of keeping Penix Jr. upright last week. Let's see if they have that same success against this Michigan defensive line that gave Alabama all these fits last year. Because if they do, and these receivers have time, especially being in man coverage, like, you could see some big plays happening just from corners covering too long, or just the way Washington schemes their players open.
Here's a funny thing for you. Michigan has, with Blake Corum, they got Donovan Edwards behind him with all the talent in the world. Well, if Dillon Johnson does go down, he has 1,162 yards. Their next running back with the highest yardage is 194 yards. That's a 1,000-yard difference between the second leading running back for Washington and their starter in Dillon Johnson. So that is a huge amount of offense. It's not like they got us another guy back there that's like 400, 500 yards they could throw in there, just in case. That's not the case with Washington. They had another back that went down in training camp before the year started, who has had to miss the year. But Dillon Johnson has to go in this game, or this game will be a boat race. And it's going to be Michigan heavy.
That is the one thing that I do disagree with you with, just because I saw what the game plan was last week. I know Dylan Johnson had 2 touchdowns. He ran it in from like the 1 yard line and 3 yard line. So like it wasn't like he did anything crazy there. And he had 21 carries for 49 yards. Like I think you can get that kind of production out of anybody, and it's not to slight Dylan Johnson. I do think he's viable. I do think he's an X factor for this Washington team. But if they go into it with that same game plan, obviously they wanted to rush for more yards in that one. But if Michael Penix Jr. finds that success in the air, I'm not going to say Dylan Johnson doesn't matter, but you can get 50 yards and 2 touchdowns on 2.5 yards per carry from anybody in that Washington running back room.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, good.
No, I was just saying, let's take a look at the defensive numbers, Cottrell, if you want to pull those up for us. Let's see what the 2 defenses we're seeing on Monday night look like. Obviously, a pretty big difference in points per game allowed this season. Fun fact that goes against that number is where is it? My facts, yeah. There we go. So Michigan has to go along with the number 1 ranked defense in the country. Michigan has the 12th ranked offense to go along with it. Washington on the other side of the ball, not so great. They are a top 50 defense, stuck at that 44 ranking, and they are a number 4 offense in the country. So this is definitely going to be strength on strength with 2 offenses going at it. Can Michigan's offense, have success against the, iffy Washington D, and can the Washington offense put up some numbers against Michigan's offense that's holding teams under 250 yards per game? I mean, do they have a chance? Will it not having running back really affect these numbers? I mean, what are we thinking is going to happen in this game against with these defenses?
I mean, I think for me, the biggest thing is you look at that number at the bottom. Michigan having 38 sacks. I think it's going to come down to how well Washington can protect Michael Penix Jr. This Joe Moore Ward offense or offensive line compared to the Michigan defensive line that has had a lot of success getting after the quarterback all season. I think that's going to be where the real matchup lies. And then I think the other side of it is, Washington's defense has, at times looked like Swiss cheese, this season. You saw them, what the performance they put up against Stanford. You saw some of these other games where I know Oregon has a high-powered offense, but you saw them move the ball up and down the field pretty much at will, outside of a couple fourth down calls in that first matchup. So you see this Washington defense look vulnerable at times. I think the one interesting thing, though, about this matchup is that Washington is going to play a lot more zone coverage than what you saw from Alabama. So Michigan's passing plays that they, schemed open, a lot of those came against man coverage. Not saying Jim Harbaugh doesn't have any zone beaters, but this game will look different than what you saw versus that Alabama team. Of course, I do think Blake Corum, is going to have a huge game in this one. I don't think they have anything up front. Washington has anything up front to stop that rushing attack, but I'm curious to see what this game looks like on the drives that Michigan gets behind the sticks and they do have to throw the ball. I don't love Washington's secondary by any means, but I am interested to see what it looks like because you will see more zone coverage against some of those Michigan playmakers on the outside.
So it's gonna be a lot of like what you saw in certain aspects of like the Ohio State and Michigan game and the Ohio State Michigan Penn State game. You're not going to have the big 30, 40 chunk yard chunk plays that you did against man. It's Michigan's just going to methodically going to have to move the ball down the field, which they'll do. They'll run if they need 7. They'll get 8 or 9 and just sit in a zone and get a completion, get tackled, and then start over in first down. So in that aspect, that's the biggest difference you're going to see. I also think if Michigan's running the ball like crazy, Washington's going to have to come out of that zone. They're not going to be able to sit back there and shell and just play everything in front of us and let Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards run for 7-8 yards a carry because you're just going to die by 1,000 cuts at that point. They're not going to be able to stay in it if Michigan can establish the run early. They're going to have to blitz their linebackers. That leaves huge gaps for Roman and Colston Loveland over the middle, and that's eventually where I think you're going to see the breakdown later on in the game, and Michigan's going to start getting more explosive plays. On the flip side, again, I think Cottrell hit the big one on the head. It's the pressure. Penix, in the pocket versus out of the pocket, his numbers are very, I won't say very, but there's definitely a dip when he's outside the pocket. And can Michigan get pressure on him with just a front 4 or just bringing one extra guy, and leaving Junior Colston and Mike Barrett, underneath to handle either running plays and the running backs coming out and letting the secondary do their thing. If Michigan do that, I think they're going to be very successful. And then I do think this game has a chance to be a blowout. But that Washington offensive line is very, very good. They are the Joe Moore award-winning team. Michigan won the last 2 years. They were nominated again this year. That's going to play a huge factor in this game, because if Penix only has 2 seconds or 3 seconds to look down the field to get those guys open with the way Michigan's going to cover them, it's a lot different than having 4 or 5 seconds, and it's a big difference. So the pressure that Michigan get up front with Mason Graham and all those guys, and stopping the run. Texas has a very good defensive line in regards to stopping the run. They don't generate a lot of pressure. They didn't have a lot of sacks. A lot of their sacks this year, I think it was like 70% of their sacks came off blitzes. Michigan doesn't have to do that. So if Michigan doesn't have to bring the extra guys, that's a huge advantage for the Wolverines. Like I said, I think it's going to be a battle of matchups like it always is. And I think there's just more in favor of Michigan than there are Washington.
Yeah, I mean, this game definitely favors Michigan's playing style. The last 2 games Washington has played against Texas in the college football playoff, obviously, and then the Ducks in the Pac-12 championship game, they're allowing 6.4 yards per carry between the 2 games against the Ducks and Texas. And with Michigan being a run-heavy team as they are, with the 2 Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards in the backfield, I think Michigan's going to run the ball pretty heavily this game. I don't watch Michigan like you do, Bill, but I'm almost seeing this game going exactly kind of how you said Ohio State-Michigan game did, where we may see J.J. McCarthy throw very minimally as Michigan tries to kind of control the ball, use their strength up front to kind of push Washington's defensive line around. And ultimately, they could easily average 7 yards per carry, just like Texas and Oregon's had success with. As far as that run game goes, I mean, do you see it any differently, Control?
I think Michigan definitely has the advantage in the rushing attack. I do think that, Michigan will be able to run the ball at will versus this Washington defense. But it also depends on what their game plan is, because, with Washington, you bring up the Oregon game. The first game, Bucky Irvin had 127 yards. The second game, they held Bucky Irvin to 20 yards on. I know he only had 9 attempts, but they held him to 20 yards, and that was big for them. I know they got down early and they had to throw the ball a bit more in that game. I fully understand that, but I think with Washington, it will come down to, I think they need to steal a possession here or there, whether it's a fumble or an interception. I'm sure Harbaugh is, they're working on special teams probably up until this moment now, up until the game. Those guys don't get any time off. They're in there catching balls from the jug machines and stuff like that. So I don't think you have any necessarily giveaways in that department, but I think Washington's defense will be susceptible to give up plays in the run game. But I think, for them to win this game, they're going to have to get at least 1 turnover, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, game flow is definitely going to matter in this game because to Cottrell's point, if Washington's down 2 possessions and they have to become one-dimensional, that's danger zone, obviously, because Michigan's just going to pin their ears back and go, and vice versa. If you make Michigan a little bit more one-dimensional and have to throw the ball more, that is kind of when they get in trouble. The one thing I will say is Michigan, has been here before, in regards to the college football playoff. They've been here 3 years in a row. I don't think there's going to be any nerves in the beginning of this game for them, whereas I think you might see it Washington a little bit. And also Michigan, to their credit, they're kind of stubborn. They could be down, even when they were down to Alabama, they're like, we're just going to keep running the ball. And they keep, you hear the commentators keep saying, you have to, when you play Michigan, it's hard not to get bored, because if you're a cornerback or you're a safety, it's it's the 8th play in a row, I'm not involved in, and then all of a sudden they pop one. I think JJ will at least pop one big one in this game somewhere, maybe off play action, something like that. But again, I think Washington's going to have to play Russian roulette at some point in this game, and I think that's a huge It's a huge advantage for a team like Michigan who doesn't take a lot of risks when they don't have to, and they take care of the ball. I think Washington is going to have to send extra people to stop the run, and when they do, that factors right into either JJ keeping the ball and running the other side, or a big play action play over the middle, something like that. And I think it's just gonna be hard for them. I do. I think Kellen DeBoer is a great coach. I've said that numerous times. This year, and I think it's the reason. I hate to say it, I think it's the reason that they beat Oregon twice, because I think he thoroughly outcoached Dan Lanning both times. So I think he's a great coach. I think he's one of the biggest. Everybody gives all the credit to Michael Penix Jr., his receivers and everything. Washington Huskies have a great head coach, and I think he's one of the biggest reasons they're here. He's great at adjustments. He's great at game planning. I think it's just at some point, strength on strength becomes, the narrative of this game. And again, I just think Michigan has more strengths and less weaknesses than Washington does.
All right. Well, I think
Time to pick the game then.
I think we're time to pick them.
Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, you want me to start off? All right. I was gonna say I'll let you go first, Bill. This is your team, but I'll let you wrap it up.
Everybody knows who's I'm picking, so
that's true. All right, so here we go. Obviously, Washington, Michigan, 28-0 combined record. Here's the stats that I'm looking at here. Washington has played 4 top 25 defenses. Okay, in those games, they're averaging 35 points per game. Okay. Ohio State's defense has only played 2 top 25 offenses this season, which is what Washington is, and they are averaging 22 points allowed per this season so far. So it's really strength on strength. Washington's offense, Michigan's defense. Something's got to give. And for me, I got to go with the team that's had 8 consecutive one-score games. The guys who have the Heisman Trophy finalists. I picked Michael Penix Jr. to win the Heisman Trophy at the beginning of the year. He did not win it. As a consolation prize, I will take Washington to win the College Football National Championship this year. I think this is going to be a close game. I do think this game is going to be a lot higher than anticipated. The score will be, just strictly because of the fact that Washington's offense is too good. Even if they become one-dimensional, Michael Penix is going to be able to fit that ball into tight spots, and Michigan's defense is going to be kind of on their heels the entire game, is what I believe is going to happen. I think Washington wins this game. Very similar score as the last 2 games against Texas and Oregon. I'm thinking it's going to be 36-33 with Washington hitting a game winner with less than a minute left. Michigan will have a chance to drive the ball down for the win. I don't think it's going to happen. Washington's defense, which has been shiesty all year, is going to step up on the last drive of the game and stop Blake Corum and J.J. McCarthy from scoring, ultimately winning 36-33. Washington is your national champion. The Pac-12 goes out on top, baby.
Go ahead, good job.
Feels just like whatever, bro.
So I also, like Alex, I see this being a close game, and I do think that Washington will get up for this game. I know a lot of people think that Michigan is going to, dominate in this one. I don't see that happening. I do think styles make fights, and I do think this is a bad matchup for Washington, but I think their offense can score against anybody in the country, and that's Michigan included. I do think Washington will have success running the ball when they need to. I don't think Dylan Johnson I don't think you see him with 20 touches. I think he has maybe 12, 13 touches, but I think they're going to be valuable, either set the tone, like, making it a, 2nd and 6 as opposed to, being 2nd and long, or him getting a 2-3 yard first down, something like that. Like, I think his numbers won't look great, but what he does is going to be viable for what this Huskies team's trying to do. I said on Wednesday that I have it going down to the wire. I think it's 31-27. Huskies get the ball. They're driving down the field. And I'm switching my pick. I got the Huskies punching the ball in the end zone. I think they win the game 34-31. And we're talking about Michael Penix Jr. submitting his claim. I'm sure he feels like he got snubbed for the Heisman. I think he'll take a national championship instead. He gets to ride off into the sunset and probably work his way into the first round of NFL draft in April.
I'm not going to switch my pick. I think I don't subscribe to the part of where I think this game's a blowout, because I don't believe that. I don't think Washington who I've given all the credit in the world to of being resilient and playing in all these close games. And, this time of year it matters, for your kids to be comfortable playing in close games. And that's a big deal. Both these teams have done that. So I don't think this is going to be a blowout at all. I think it's going to be a very close game. I said 31-24, and that's where I'm going to stick. I think it's right around there. I think they're probably really close to the number. I think the number is 55.5 right now, somewhere around there. And I just think when push comes to shove, I mean, there's the old cliche of offense wins games, defense wins championships. And I think we've already discussed it on the show. I think Washington is a great offense. I think our defense is suspect. I think Michigan has a very good offense with an elite defense. Washington is one of the closest things that reminds me of what Ohio State looks like. And Michigan, this team was literally built 3 years ago to start beating Ohio State, and that's what they've done. And I think this is a game model that is very similar. I think we can look at all the numbers in the world about Washington's offense. And again, I'm not saying Michigan's going to go out and shut them out or anything like that, but they have an elite defense. I think they're going to be able to get pressure up front without having to blitz enough. And when the push comes to shove, I just could be wrong. I mean, they're going to play the game Monday. I mean, we could sit here and talk about it all we want. I don't think Washington's defense can hold this team under 30 points. I just don't. I think Blake's going to cook. I think JJ's going to have a way bigger day than people think he's going to. And I think at the end, I think Michigan's just overall a better football team. And I think they're going to win. I think they'll be national champions. And then, we'll see what happens afterwards with people leaving and so forth and so on. But I got Michigan 31, Washington 24.
By people leaving, you mean JJ, or are you talking about Jim?
I mean, all of them together. I mean, the only one I think I'm actually very sure of, I think Donovan's coming back, which I love. I think Blake I think the way the year was starting to go and the way it ended up going, I think Donovan struggled a little bit at the beginning of the year. He was a little bit banged up. I think Donovan's going to stay for another year and be able to be the RB1 and really show kind of, what he is. So there's a lot of people saying JJ is coming back no matter what. I don't know if I believe that. But I mean, it's gaining a lot of traction from around people that are around the program. That he said he hasn't made up his mind completely yet, but he's been kind of adamant to say that, Monday night won't change it one way or the other. So
I feel like I disagree with that. I think it's
I agree with you.
When he's gone, he's good chance he's coming back.
Yeah.
I do think he wants to be a national champion.
I agree. So, but we'll see. I mean, I think that kid has been dialed in. It's really hard pressed for me to not say that when this is, especially if they win Monday, I don't know if I've ever watched a kid play there that I like more than JJ. The kid is confident but humble. He's not a dick. And he's come in and been an absolute ambassador for that team and that school and done everything he said he's going to do. And he's really talented on top of everything else. So, I just hope it's a good game. I hate to say it, I don't want to blow out, and I even mean that. Like, will it be easy for me to watch the game if Michigan's up 30.5? Yeah, it would. But I think what makes these games classics is when they're good. And last couple years, well, not last year, but the semifinal games last year were great. But the championship game sucked. But I think we're in for a very, very good football game Monday night. So I'm excited, nervous, anxious, all those things. But we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, I guess we have to wait till Monday to figure out who's the national champion is going to be this year. And I'm excited for next week to talk about it. And next week we'll get into the recap of the game. We'll talk about next year's future and our picks and all that good stuff. And I'm sad there's no football today, besides NFL later. But
yeah, NFL later.
We do have breaking news from the portal.
Oh.
It's not important. But
Damn,
I had to bring it up because we talked about it slightly earlier. Seth McLaughlin has committed to Ohio State. the center from Alabama, who had about 17 bad snaps in that game, has committed to Ohio State. I'm praying. Ryan Day has the plan to move him to guard. Because if you put him at center with Will Howard, like I just see that turning into a whole fiasco.
4-loss team, Ohio State next year.
Put him at guard. If you put him at guard, I absolutely love this signing. He's a great offensive lineman. You put him at center, I don't care how well he blocks. Those missed snaps are going to hurt you in a game like you saw it hurt Alabama.
The only thing that I would say is a little bit different with you guys. You guys go under center way more than Alabama does. Like Jalen Milroe, I think, was under center like 3 times that game, got sacked twice, and they were like, all right, like he can't even get back in his drops and read anything. We're just going to start him out of shotgun or pistol. You guys go under center a lot more. So, but that being said, I agree with you. I think the kid would be a great guard. I mean, he can block. I think he'd be a great guard, but it's kind of like having the Gips, though. I think that's what it was. So they also said
he had him all season, though. All season
he
was like that for him.
They did, but again, I think it's a mental thing. I mean, but they also said they were talking about on the other show. They said, and Saban kind of even agreed with it too. He said 2 of them really like weren't his fault. That like he just snapped them, and like Milroe didn't think the ball was coming yet. They weren't really bad snaps per se, but I think I still think he projects better as a guard. I do agree with Cottrell. We both said the same thing right away. But that's it. We'll give the FCFC. There's two big championship games left. We'll recap both next week. I will either be here smiling. I might even put that damn helmet on if they win and do the show with the helmet on. If they lose, I might not even be here. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this might be a 2-man show next week. Because I am sure as hell not prepping a Michigan loss show. So
we had to prep our loss shows. All right, he had to prep the Ohio State loss. I had to do 2 loss shows. All right, so I don't want to hear it.
Alex, I know you're not used to being in like super huge games like this, but it's just different. It's just different. Cottrell knows it's just different.
It is different.
It's different. So it's a higher level. It's like breathing air here versus up here. I know. You guys
I was in hell. How do you think I felt last year? National championship was literally in our grasp, and then the ball dropped, and Ohio State's season was over, and I had to watch Georgia go to the national championship game, and then I had to do a show that Wednesday with these guys. Like, it is different.
Because I was in the same boat as you last year. We lost to TCU. The asshole last year was Gene and his Bulldogs, because then they're like, I'm gonna win by 45 now, and then we know you are, Gene. Like that was the hardest part of last year. But no, I mean, I don't want to think about it. I'm not even going to put it out in the universe. If Michigan loses, I'm just telling you, I might not be here next week. I might be on a bridge. I might show up in the middle of the show drunk, just smoking a cigarette. I don't know what's going to happen. But
just in the house, just straight.
Yeah, I'll just be like, whatever. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. I don't even care.
No fan on, no window open.
Nothing.
Smoky room, looking like a 70s casino.
Yeah, haven't seen the sun in 6 days. I mean, it could happen. But that being said, I think we're in for a great game Monday. So, we will be back. Like I said, Monday will be fun. We'll recap the FCS. We'll recap the national championship game. All 3 of us will give our way too early top 12 projected college football playoff teams next year.
Do you guys want to do awards next week?
Yeah.
Award recap show?
Oh, all right. We can do that. We got to start working on that like now then, though.
For sure.
Easy.
Yeah, we can do that. That'll be fun.
We'll have time.
Yeah, we will. All right, we can do that. So there you go. We will have the 2023 College Football Awards Show along with 2024 Top 12 College Football Playoff projections and recaps, and that will be a fun show. That'll
be a good show.
That'll be a fun show. So enjoy your weekends, everybody. You're in the Northeast like me. Get ready for the snow. Run out, get your milk and your eggs and your bread because you might die. The whole
toilet paper.
whole whole emergency, whatever. Alex, enjoy the cold and the rain, and
You guys enjoy the snow. A little jealous.
maybe
Don't be.
Um,
Overrated.
and we will see everybody back here next Saturday. Enjoy your weekends, everyone.